72 hours. I wake inside a box. Air sits heavy and stale. Rust, oil, damp rope. I move and hit steel. The sound rings around me and crawls back into my ears. My skull throbs. My stomach flips. I push again, palms sliding on grit. Darkness presses until a weak bulb trembles to life near the ceiling. A caged thing, flickering like a moth on fire. Corrugated walls jump in and out of the light. Rivets, weld scars. My breath fogs, then breaks apart. I whisper to test my voice. It comes out cracked and thin. Hello. The word dies against metal. Silence returns, bigger than me. I crawl, counting ridges, knees burning through denim. The floor is sanded with filings and dust. Something sticky flakes under my nails. I reach a corner. There, a patch of scratches, lines, numbers. 72 hours. The words are carved deep enough to bite, edges ragged. I trace a groove and my fingertip stings. The light flickers and the 7 turns into a hooked blade. Beneath the numbers, clusters of tiny notches. Tally marks in frantic rows. I pull my hand back and wipe it on my jeans. My mouth tastes metallic. Each breath scrapes like I'm swallowing pennies. I press my ear to a wall. The steel is cool and humming with a faint faraway pulse. Maybe a generator. Maybe traffic. It doesn't matter. It is not help. Something clicks near my knee. A seam I hadn't noticed splits along a small square flush with the wall. A slot. It doesn't open. The click repeats higher up. Another noise rides in with it. A dry hiss. Static. It blooms from a rusted grill bolted near the bulb. The hiss ripens into a voice run through a grinder. Male. Calm. Edges where warmth should be. Claire. My name freezes me. I press my spine to steel and grip the floor until my fingers ache. Who is this? Do you remember how to tell the truth? What do you want? You will tell it. I swallow, but my throat is sand. The bulb hums like a tired fly. Where am I? In a place where time matters. I want out. Confess. To what? You know. I don't. You do. My heart bangs against the box like it wants to find a seam I missed. I touch the gouged numbers again to prove they're real under my hand and not a trick of the light. Say the words on the wall. 72 hours. Good. What is this? A reckoning. Why me? You were there. Where? Stop wasting time. A split image opens behind my eyes. Concrete. Cell phones held up like torches. A blindfold. Chanting. A laugh that turned to nothing. I push it away. It shoves back. I didn't do anything. You did nothing. I press my forehead to metal. Cold floods my skin. The smell of rust deepens until it feels like it's coating my tongue. What happens if I confess? The clock holds. And if I lie? Someone bleeds. If I don't talk, time moves faster. I look for a clock. Only the carved numbers stare back. I don't see one. You will hear it. A breath moves through the slot. The seam widens. A plastic bottle slides into the box and bumps my wrist. I flinch like it could bite. The bottle is unmarked, warm. My body lunges at it anyway. Drink. I'm not your pet. Drink. I open it. The water tastes like plastic and mercy. I take 3 small swallows and feel my chest loosen half an inch. I cap the bottle and tuck it behind my hip, as if someone could take it. Thank you. Don't spend gratitude here. Who are you? A consequence. That's not a name. It's better than a mask. I sit with my back to the wall and let the floor leach heat from my legs. I make myself inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 5. It steadies the shaking in my hands. The bulb's caged wire throws a shadow across the wall, like a bent rib. Someone will come looking. They will arrive too late. You sound sure. I keep promises. Outside the container, steps move, distant, then closer. A chain rattles fast, then still. The air in the box seems to lean toward the sound and then pull away again. My body wants to stand. I don't. My knees feel made of glass. Please, tell the truth, Claire. You think I killed someone. I think you watched. I close my eyes. The image flashes clearer now. A boy's unsteady stance on a table, a chant tightening into a rope, hands not catching hard enough, a skull meeting concrete with a wet crack that stopped the room. The silence after. The way my phone felt heavy in my hand. I see my own thumb not moving. I didn't forget. You buried it. You don't know me. I know the weight of a number. The slot opens again. A small bucket slides through, followed by a roll of thin paper. My face burns and then cools. Shame can wait. The body has rules. I move the bucket into a corner and set the paper beside it. The act makes the walls inch closer. How long have I been here? The first minute counts. How long? Long enough to be thirsty. Are you alone? I am enough. I push around the perimeter, searching for vents, screws, a weakness. In one corner, behind a grainy grill the size of my palm, air kisses my skin. The screws are ancient, powdering rust when I touch them. You have cameras. Yes. Where? Where you can't reach. Why tell me? So you stop waving. I look up anyway. The bulb glares. The speaker squats like an old wound. Somewhere, glass watches. Will you bring someone else? When you make me. Make you how? Lie. You said 12 hours. You can spend it faster. I won't. Then wait. Silence hovers. The bulb ticks as it cools and heats. A thin itch builds under my skin. I rub my arms until the feeling slides away. It leaves a chill that sits on me like a wet blanket. You promised proof. You'll have it. Not like that. As it is. A sound starts beyond the wall. Low at first, like a throat clearing. It swells into a muffled cry and shreds there, pressed under cloth or tape. The voice is close enough to vibrate the steel. I press my palm to the seam and feel it quiver. Stop. Confess. I don't know what to say. Start with a name. It's gone. It isn't. The muffled cry breaks into a guttural noise that isn't a word. Something metal snaps into place. My stomach flips into my throat. I curl forward and breathe into my hands. The scent of rust goes sharp. Please. Time is patient. People aren't. What are you doing? Keeping the rules. I'll talk. Now. Not yet. You waste minutes. Let me think. Think clean. I listen. The noise beyond the wall fades into a whimper, then a silence louder than any scream. A new sound takes its place. Soft, steady, a tick so thin it could be a trick, except it keeps going. Through the floor, through my teeth, through the numbers carved deep. Do you hear it? I hear you. You hear your time. I put my ear to the cold wall. The tick threads the metal, exact and indifferent. It fills the space and measures my breathing. I picture a red hand on a face I can't see, sweeping toward a mark I don't want to know. What happens when it stops? You stop. I didn't call because I was scared. Fear is not absolution. They told me it was fine. They said he'd sleep it off. They said a lot. My hands won't hold still. I tuck them under my thighs and lean back until the wall supports everything, except the part of me that keeps trying to stand. Behind my eyes, the flyer appears. Smiling photo. Name in bold. Torn down after a week. Hushed. I can't remember his name. You can. It's far away. It lives in your throat. The bulb sags and steadies. Sweat trickles down my spine and dries there in the draft from the little vent. The container smells like old rain and coins. I sip water and put the bottle down with care, as if noise can make the walls narrow. Do you want me dead? I want you honest. That's not the same. It is close enough. I press my fingers to the bump on my scalp. Heat. The skin pulls. The memory of the parking lot sharpens. Shoes behind me. A sweet chemical. Cloth. A door sliding closed. A world that went away before I could be afraid. The fear arrives now. Late and efficient. You drugged me. You're awake. This is madness. It's a plan. Why now? Because you still sleep. You'll be caught. You think so? People will notice. They always do after. The tick keeps counting. The sound burrows under thought, patient as a drip. I try to list details to anchor myself. 14 rivets from floor to bulb cage, 9 across each panel, 3 seams I can feel without looking. A thin draft from the vent that carries the scent of damp wood and cold. No phone, no watch, just the numbers and that sound. Every 12 hours. Yes. When does it start? It started when you woke. Then how much is gone? Enough. Tell me who you are. A brother. The word catches. It sits between us, heavy. I don't repeat it. He doesn't offer more. The box feels smaller again. Don't bring anyone else. You control that. How? You know how. I slide down until my hip bone meets the floor. I fold my hands under my cheek like a child playing sleep. The bulb drones. The tick rides in the metal like a second pulse. I stare at the carved numbers until they fuzz and sharpen and fuzz again. Claire. What? Do you remember yet? A syllable lifts and falls, almost forming, then sinks. I grip it and come up with air. I taste rust and plastic and the sour edge of fear. The tick keeps me company. It doesn't care about names. I watch the slot. I watch the vent. I watch the seam where a door might be, if the world was kinder. The air stirs. My lashes feel gritty. I hold the bottle under my neck to lift my head off the floor, and it presses cold into my skin. Outside, metal answers metal, somewhere in the warehouse belly that holds this box. The sound is hollow and far, like a bell rung for someone else. The tick is close. It grows louder because I am listening. It threads through my thoughts until they move on its beat. I see the table again. The blindfold, the stumble, the fall. My hand closing around nothing. The room holding its breath long enough to learn how to lie. The flyers pulled down after a week because the semester changed and the weather did. And that's how time works, when people let it. I keep my eyes open because dreams waste air. I match my breath to the tick. I make it through 1 minute, then another. The voice doesn't return. The box does not shift its weight. The bulb buzzes, stubborn and tired. The tick stays, a metronome for the seconds I don't deserve and still want. I rest my cheek on my hands and listen to my time pass. The tick owns the dark until the box changes its mind. Metal scrapes, air sharpens. The seam I traced earlier splits without warning, and a slab of white light burns through the room. Boots slam. A weight hits the threshold. Then a body skids across grit and stops at my feet. The gap slams shut. Bolts bite. The light vanishes. The caged bulb sputters back to life, yellow and stubborn, as if dragged from sleep. He lies curled on his side, wrists pinned behind him with zip ties, tape crooked over his mouth, blonde hair clotted with sweat, a bruise swelling under one eye, jacket half torn, breathing too fast. He rolls, finds the wall with his shoulder, and braces. His gaze rakes the corners, then hooks on the gouged numbers. Something in him sets. Static lifts from the rusted grill. The voice arrives, smooth through metal. Welcome. The boy flinches toward the speaker, then toward me. He tries to speak through the tape. The noise is a muffled scrape of vowels and heat. I lift a hand, not to soothe, just to slow his thrashing. The slot near the floor clicks. A pair of blunt scissors slides through in a scrape of plastic on steel. I grab them and kneel. Up close, his skin smells like fear and old rain. He tips his chin, quick and rigid. I slide the scissors under a corner of the tape and peel slow so I don't take skin. The tape comes free with a wet rip. He inhales like surfacing. Ethan, the voice says. His eyes hitch to the grill. They flicker. He doesn't answer. Rules, the voice says. Every 12 hours, Claire will speak the truth. Lie, and someone suffers. Refuse, and time drops. The clock starts now. The tick grows half a shade louder, as if nodding. Ethan looks from the speaker to the wall to my face. The zip ties rub into the tendons of his wrists as he tests them. He works his jaw, then swallows whatever he wants to throw and lets it die. I turn the scissors to the ties and try the plastic. The blades pinch and slip. The plastic squeals and holds. I try again, angling for leverage against the floor. Stop, the voice says. I set the scissors down. Ethan's breath shivers, then evens out in a forced rhythm. He shifts until his bound hands press the floor. His eyes move over the details here, like he's memorizing a map of a world that won't help him. He takes in the bucket tucked in the corner, the empty slot, the caged bulb, the vent the size of a hand. His gaze lingers on the words carved into the steel, the 7 like a hook. The 2 crouch to run. He doesn't ask what they mean. He already knows. Confess, the voice says. My mouth tastes like pennies. I swallow, but it doesn't change. I watched, I say, because it's the only sentence that will move. I didn't call. Not enough, the voice says. The bulb clicks. The sound is the tiniest bone breaking. Ethan looks at me without heat. Then he looks away, as if the wall is easier to hold. Begin with names, the voice says. Air narrows. My brain flips through pages that won't stay open. A flyer curls on a dorm board. A face in a photo that was everywhere for a week, and then nowhere. The letters smear every time I reach for them. I don't have them. You do. Ethan's jaw knots. He leans his head to the steel and closes his eyes. The bruise under his eye darkens by a shade, as if the box is feeding it. His breath goes shallow. He is saving it. The light cuts out. Not a flicker, a guillotine. The dark drops, solid, swallowing what shape the room had. The tick lifts into the space the light left behind and sets the tempo. I extend a hand and meet nothing. Ethan inhales, small despite himself. then moves closer because there's nowhere else that isn't steel. A sound wakes beyond the wall, not in here, near. It starts as a torn-off gasp and drags itself into a cry. Muffled, thick with tape or cloth, the rhythm doesn't loop clean. A chain scrapes once and then again. The body behind the sound finds a new edge and grinds against it. "Stop," I say into the dark. "Confess." The voice answers, even, patient. My palms meet the wall. The steel hums with the noise like it's sharing. I feel the vibration in my teeth. Ethan's shoulder brushes mine, flinches away, returns. He whispers against the dark, without looking at me. "Is it real?" I listen to the wetness in the breathing, to the way the fear doesn't repeat. The room beyond ours has gravity. It has a person learning their limits in it. It's real. The cry thins to a hoarse groan. It lands in my stomach like a fist. I fold and hold my breath, then let it out slow so the walls don't take it. The box narrows by inches I can't see. "Last chance," the voice says. "I can't pull a name out of a wall." Time can. The light returns in a cough. It's weaker, a few watts scraped back from some stingy source. The bulb hums, thin and tired. Ethan blinks into it, eyes hard from the dark. He looks at the wall again, and I follow his gaze without wanting to. Fresh cuts shine under the cage's yellow glow. Beneath 72 hours, new grooves carve a second verdict, 60 hours. The curls of shaved metal cling to the lower ridge and catch light like frost. Air leaves my body in a small sound. Ethan stares the way people look at a coffin closing. His bound hands flex behind him without moving the ties. "Time moves when you hold it back," the voice says. "How many times can you do that?" I ask. "Enough." Ethan pushes his heels into the grit and sits up straight as if posture alone is resistance. He nods, once, like he just learned a rule he already knew. He doesn't look at me. The slot opens. 2 plastic bottles bump into the box. I take one and press the other to Ethan's forearms so he can hook it with his tied hands. He clutches it between wrists and knees and tips it up awkwardly to his mouth. Water spills and tracks a clean curve through the dust on his chin. He drinks without looking away from the numbers. The bottle in my hand goes warm fast. I sip slow, not to save it, but because the act of pausing between swallows feels like control. The vent pushes a thin thread of cooler air against my temple. I move a fraction to keep it. The voice doesn't speak. The tick runs. I inventory the room to quiet the noise inside me. 4 seams I can feel without looking. 3 I can see. 14 rivets from floor to cage. 9 across each panel. The bucket, the slot, the vent, the bulb, the gouged words. The new numbers that make the room smaller by a math my body knows. The memory rises without permission. A basement that smelled like beer and bleach. A chant that made everything inside me go tight. A blindfold. A table. Hands that held, then didn't. The sound that followed. The way the silence felt like a plan. The weight of my phone. The heat of wanting to be someone else for 5 seconds. The choice to do nothing because doing something was bigger than me. "Names," the voice says. The syllables in my throat are shapes without ink. They slide when I push. I bite down until it hurts and hold the ache so the letters don't run. A first letter loosens and sinks again. "I don't have them," I say. "You will," the voice says. Ethan keeps his eyes on the metal and speaks for the wall. He had one. I know. When? When the part of me that buried it runs out of dirt. That time is now. His voice is flat as a statement on paper. No plea in it. No anger left spare. The bulb ticks as it heats and cools in tiny shifts. The sound threads the larger tick from the wall, and together they make a slow, indifferent song. I match my breath to it and feel ridiculous, then less ridiculous when my hands stop shaking. The slot slides open again. Nothing this time. Only air colder by a thin degree. A message in temperature. We are being timed. We will be fed only when the clock allows. I test the vent screws with my fingernail. They resist without drama. Rust powders my fingers. I taste it in the air as if it is inside me now. I wipe my hands on my jeans and leave brown smudges. Sleep, the voice says. Ethan huffs a laugh with no joy. We don't sleep, he says into the room. The speaker doesn't answer. Silence expands until the tick fills it. Somewhere outside, metal knocks against something heavier and stops. A forklift cough, or a chain pulled and dropped. The world beyond us keeps working. My knees ache from the floor. I shift and fold until the ache becomes background and stay there. Ethan slides along the corrugation until his shoulder finds a groove that doesn't bite. He breathes through his nose, short and even, making each inhale count. I study the fresh cuts under the cage's light. 60 hours. The number sits like a second box built inside the first, smaller, closer. The voice returns, quieter, and that makes it worse. 12 hours, it says. Then we test again. No threats, no theater, the tone of someone setting an alarm. I put the scissors back by the slot in case the room decides to be kind later. I tuck one water under my hip again, because the cold against bone makes me feel awake. I keep the other in my hands, so they have a job. Ethan picks a spot on the wall, 2 ridges down from the numbers, and stares until his pupils look like pinholes. He isn't praying. He is pulling himself smaller to fit in what's left of him. I recognize the posture. I've used it. He breaks the quiet without looking at me. Don't make it 50. I won't. Don't. The tick folds those words away like receipts. The bulb hums. The draft from the vent strokes the damp hair at my neck. My tongue tastes like plastic and old copper. I try to imagine the sky and come up with gray. I try to imagine a door and come up with a seam. I try to imagine calling for help and come up with the dead weight of my phone the night I didn't. The first letter of a name sits on my tongue, light as dust. It won't land. I hold very still and breathe around it, as if motion will blow it off. It doesn't. It stays where I can feel it and not say it. The tick applauds by doing nothing at all. Minutes pass and pile in neat stacks against the numbers. The room warms a little and cools a little, and never changes in a way that matters. The voice does not return. The sounds outside go on doing their jobs. The box keeps us the way a pocket keeps coins. Small circles of weight, the world doesn't count until they clink. I sit, listening to a clock I cannot see, and measure out what is left of this part of the day. The tick drills through the quiet until it feels like a second pulse. I try to breathe with it. In, out. Match the rhythm so my chest doesn't sprint out of my body. The air is warm where it leaves the bulb and colder by the little vent. Dust rides every breath. My tongue tastes like copper and plastic. The water helps and doesn't. Ethan leans against the wall like a shored-up door. He keeps his eyes on the numbers, not on me. The bruise under his eye blooms darker as the light tires. His wrists work against the ties in small, stubborn pulls. He can't stop. Plastic murmurs, skin rubs. He knows it won't give and pulls anyway because doing nothing feels like drowning. I study the room again, not because it changed, but because I need proof I still can. Corrugations, weld scars, the cage around the bulb throwing ribbed shadow across steel, the speaker, rust eating its corners, the slot that opens when the voice chooses, the vent, palm-sized and stingy, 4 seams, 14 rivets from floor to cage, 9 across a panel, the math of a box. It doesn't add up to a door. The camera is somewhere I can't reach. I tilt the water bottle to catch a reflection, hoping for a pinhole of darker dark. A glare runs across the plastic and dies. Nothing. I feel watched anyway. The skin between my shoulder blades has its own breath. Ethan speaks without turning his head. Who is he? A brother. He exhales through his nose, short, flat, no surprise. Only a shape of anger that doesn't know where to go. He wants a record. He wants a confession. From you. From all of us. The bulb ticks. The sound is tiny, like a knuckle cracking on the other side of a wall. The warehouse outside answers with a hollow knock, and then returns to swallowing itself. I press the blunt scissors against a vent screw and try to worry rust into motion. The blade slips. Powder coats my fingers. I slow down, angle, push. The screw refuses like a stubborn tooth. I stop before the metal snaps and leaves nothing to try later. The speaker stays quiet. That makes everything louder. I hear the slick drag of my breath at the back of my throat. I hear the grit complain when I shift my weight. I hear Ethan's tiny movements, the patience he is faking. A memory moves in the dark behind my eyes and sits where I can't ignore it. The basement wasn't big. The ceiling was low. The air was thick with cheap beer and bodies that thought they were invincible. A table pressed against a cinder block wall. A crowd yelling so they didn't have to think. A blindfold knotted too tight. Someone chanting like it was a joke that mattered. The fall. The sound that shut the room. The way everyone stopped and looked at each other for orders no one gave. My phone a stone in my hand. My thumb not finding the screen. The belief that 5 seconds later, someone else would do it for me. No one did. Ethan's voice is a scrape. Was it you? I watched. That's not an answer. I watched and didn't act. He grunts. It isn't judgment. It's recognition. He returns to watching the numbers as if the metal might tell him what to do. The tick goes on. It sinks into the corrugations and builds a spine for the room. It builds one for me, too. I peel a strip of tape from the edge of the discarded piece and wind it around the scissors to thicken the grip. The work is small. It gives my hands a job. I anchor myself there, in the ordinary act of wrapping plastic around plastic, in a place meant to erase ordinary. The speaker wakes. Static fizz, then the voice, smooth, calm, close, without being here. 12 hours, then truth. We heard you. Use the time. Give us a name. Give yourself one. I keep my eyes on the vent screw. I don't look at the grill. My chest tightens a little, then loosens when the air from the vent touches my cheek. The draft is real. Not enough, but real. Proof of something besides steel. A sound begins outside, not as sharp as before. A roll, like wheels on rough concrete. It stops near our wall. There's a shuffle, a clink of chain, a breath, too fast. The voice outside is muffled by cloth and distance, but it's adult, heavy with panic worn down to bone. Ethan flinches, then stills. I put my palm flat on the wall. Vibration runs through the metal in a low, irregular wave. The body out there moves. The box tells us everything, but the words. Stop, I say, and it sounds like I'm speaking to the wall. Tell the truth. the voice says. I told you what I did. You told me what you didn't do. The breathing on the other side tears, slows, tears again. The clink comes back and then nothing. Not silence, the kind of quiet you feel in your knees. A pressure rises in the container, a weather front under my skin. The ceiling seems lower by a fraction I can't measure, as if the box is practicing being smaller. My mouth dries. I want to drink and don't, because I am counting sips now. Counting is a way to stay human. 1 breath, 2, 1 swallow, 2. Ethan shifts, shoulders scraping corrugation, and finds a groove that hurts less. He closes his eyes. His eyelashes are clotted with dust. His mouth presses flat, then softens a notch, as if he remembered how to be alive and is trying it again. We need a plan, he says, eyes still closed. Survive 12 hours. Then what? Speak. Speak what? The truth. He opens his eyes and stares at the cage around the bulb. Whose truth? Ours. He laughs once. It's empty. He stares at the vent, like he can pull more air with his eyes. The voice interrupts without force. Food. The slot opens. A square of plastic-wrapped crackers slides in and stops at my knee. Ethan looks but doesn't move. I pick it up, split the plastic, and hand him 2. He takes them with tied hands. Awkward. He eats with small, dry chews, jaw ticking in time with the wall. I take one for myself. It tastes like salt and cardboard, and a memory of school fire drills. It turns to paste and sticks to my teeth. I eat it anyway. Why us? I say to the grill. You were there. So were others. They will meet their hours. You're going to keep doing this. Until the record is straight. What is straight? Names, acts, silence. I was 19. So was he. The screw fights, but a 3/4 turn gives me enough to believe in movement. I don't smile. My hands keep the rhythm. Press, turn, pause, breathe. The screw creeps. A thin gasp of cooler air kisses my knuckle. I think about hope, and do not name it, because naming things makes them visible to the wrong eyes. Ethan watches the numbers like a guard dog in a nightmare. His wrists are raw where the ties bite. He tugs, stops, tugs again. He lowers his hands and presses his forearms to the floor, a small surrender to reality. Did you know him? He says. No. You saw his face. Once. What did it look like? Scared. Before? Young. He swallows hard. A sound. The box notices. He leans his head back and looks at the ceiling like it might teach him something. I hear him when I try to sleep, he says. I see him when I close my eyes. Then don't close them. I try to laugh and can't. The air takes the sound before it forms. Time slows when you listen to it. Minutes stretch so thin I can see through them. I hold the scissors steady and work the second screw. Rust flakes like old snow. The blade slips and scratches my knuckle. The sting is a gift. Pain is proof. The screw turns a quarter. Then another. The grill moves a hair. The voice returns, softer than before. I see what you're doing. I keep my hand on the screw. My arm goes still. Stop, the voice says. I let go. The tick fills the breath that follows. The room does not punish. Not yet. I sit back, angled to feel the vent air, and let my pulse come down. Ethan speaks like the wall asked him a question. He's watching everything. Good. Why? It means he's afraid. He considers that and lets it sit between us. The outside sound comes back for a brief, cruel moment. A knock, a dragged breath, a noise like metal sighing under weight. Then silence slides in, slow and deep. The kind of silence that belongs to rooms with no windows. I picture a door closing on someone else's hour. The tick does not change. It never does. Names, the voice says. A letter floats up, light as ash. It trembles on my tongue and tries to drift away. I catch it in my jaw, hold it. It warms and doesn't take a shape I trust. I have pieces, I say. Give one. Short name. Many are. Dark hair. Describe the act. Chanting, drinking, the fall. Describe your part. I stood there. The voice doesn't answer. The silence that follows is not empty. It is full of what I didn't do. The tick threads through it like a wire. I pace 3 steps and back because my muscles demand it. The room pretends to lengthen and then laughs at me. My knees brush the corrugations. The grit under my soles grinds the floor into the sound of teeth. I stop before the box decides to make me. The bulb dims, then recovers, then sags again. It looks tired of this. We all do. The number on the wall is patient. It does not need feelings. Ethan shifts until his shoulder presses mine. Not closeness. Physics. We are 2 objects in a small space. Heat passes anyway. The human body acts like a torch when the world is cold. He keeps his eyes on the wall and not on me. When it happens again, he says, it will. Don't pretend you can't hear it. I won't. Don't wait for me. I won't. He nods, one small click of the head. Agreement between strangers in a place designed to erase us. I tuck the scissors under my leg the way you hide a knife under a pillow you can't sleep on. A flap of air moves under the door seam, thin as a breath that doesn't want to be here. The slot stays closed. The speaker stays quiet. The tick overrules everything. Time drags its feet on purpose. The numbers on the wall don't blink. The metal smells thicker, as if the room has started eating itself atom by atom. My tongue tastes bitter, like the aftertaste of fear. I sip water and hold it in my mouth before swallowing, so it feels like more than it is. The memory stalks closer. The boy's face, unmasked for a second, trying to find a horizon inside a blindfold. Someone slapped his back too hard. Someone joked that the floor would teach him. Someone dared. Someone looked at me, not for help, to make sure I understood the rules. Do nothing. Laugh. Move on. I understood. Tell the record, the voice says. I didn't call, I say. I didn't stop it. I left and pretended I couldn't see grief when it walked past me the next week. Not enough. That's what I have. You have more. Ethan's wrists pull once more against plastic. His skin is raw and lined in red. He sets his hands down like he's setting a weight he can't carry. He looks at me finally, not a glare, not a plea, an acknowledgement. We are in the same hour. That matters. Sleep if you can, he says. Can you? No. The bulb hums tiredly. The vent's thread of air cools sweat into a chill that sinks into bone. The floor steals heat with a steady hand. I lie down anyway, water bottle under my neck, scissors under my thigh, eyes open. The room presses its weight into me. I press back, because the alternative is disappearing by degrees. A new noise moves in the metal, not outside, inside the wall, faint, mechanical, a motor somewhere turning over, then holding. The tick grows clearer as if the sound fed it. The air tastes faintly of ozone, for one breath, then fades back to rust and dust. The voice returns, no color in it. 11 hours. The number is an idea. The room adjusts around it. The minutes stretch to meet it. The tick never changes speed. It does not care what I feel. It never will. I stare at the carved words until they blur and settle and blur again. The first letter of a name presses against my teeth. It won't come out. It won't leave. It sits there like a seed that needs heat I don't have. Ethan breathes like a runner held at the start line. Short. Even. Ready without place to go. He closes his eyes and keeps the lines of his face still through force. The ties cut tiny grooves into his skin. The mark will outlive this room. I count the spaces between ticks until my mind loses the number and starts again. It is a way to live inside minutes that don't want me. I let the count go and hold on to the sound instead. It is simple. It is honest. It has no opinion. The warehouse beyond us clears its throat. A chain lifts and drops somewhere far. A hollow thud travels the concrete like a weather report. The world outside this room does not care who we are. It can't. It has its own machines to feed. I close my eyes because open or closed is the same dark. The tick crawls into my head and makes a nest. It spreads through the soft places. It takes up residence behind my eyes. It measures my breath for me. It replaces my heartbeat when I forget to have one. A thin current of cooler air slips through the loosened screw and brushes my fingers. I lie still and let it. I do not touch the screw. I do not look at the lens I cannot see. I let the air do what it can. It is a mercy measured in millimeters. The voice does not return. Nothing changes in a way that helps. The tick keeps speaking. It fills the room, the walls, my chest, my mouth. It repeats itself because repetition is power. It grows louder because I am listening. It becomes the only sound that matters. The container has its own weather. Warm air pools under the caged bulb, thin and used. A faint cool thread seeps from the vent and never reaches my lungs. Rust lives in the back of my mouth. Dust drifts, rises when we shift, settles when we quit. The steel holds every smell like a bruise: oil, damp rope, old cleaner. Beneath it all, the machine pulse in the walls keeps time, steady and indifferent. I breathe with it because matching a machine is the only way to slow the panic. Ethan leans against the corrugation with the stubborn stillness of a man trying not to waste oxygen. The ties have carved glossy grooves in his wrists. The bruise along his cheekbone has darkened into a flat violet, the kind of color that doesn't care who caused it. He watches the gouged numbers like they might turn if stared at hard enough. 60 hours. The second box inside the first. I ration water by routine. 2 slow swallows. Cap. Tuck the bottle under my hip for the cold against bone. Wait until the waiting feels like a test. I'm failing. 2 more. The plastic taste sharpens the metal on my tongue. Hunger edges my stomach now and then fades to a clean emptiness that makes me light and brittle at once. The speaker lifts a ribbon of static. The sound is small, but the air leans toward it. The voice comes measured, not loud, as if it has been sitting in the corner watching us count dust. Ready? I give it the only answer that doesn't cost extra breath. Yes. Capable of remembering. I have pieces. Begin. I place myself back in the basement because he demands it and because avoiding it doesn't keep it from me. Low ceiling, cheap string lights, heat from bodies that thought morning would never arrive. Beer and bleach. A chant that started as a joke and hardened until it bent every face the same way. I stood on the second stair down, back to the door because the crowd had packed the frame. He was blindfolded and smiling for the room. The bottle moved too fast to belong to anyone. Hands that held him up were props, until they weren't enough. He tilted left into air and met concrete like it was a decision. The music forgot itself, then remembered to stop. Silence planted itself hard. Where did you stand? On the stairs, left side. Who poured? The bottle kept changing hands. Who failed to hold? Everyone who thought someone else would. Who told you to put your phone away? A girl behind me. She said not to. Said it would make it worse. Said he was fine. The voice doesn't argue. It lets the verbs hang where they belong. The bulb ticks as it heats and cools, the tiniest bone snapping over and over. The vent gives a breath to my wrist and retreats. The slot rasps. A small black flash drive slides in and stops against my shoe. The plastic is chewed on one corner. I don't touch it. The speaker whines, then fills with a stale echo pulled out of a year I have tried not to measure. A room's close ceiling stretches laughter into something thinner. Glass taps wood. The chant starts, trips, regains its feet. A whistle cuts wrong. Two girls layer a warning over each other. Then the late stop, a beat too long, and the silence where a life should still be. My skin tightens, like the steel around us has reached inside. Ethan's jaw jumps. He closes his eyes and keeps them closed. He doesn't need to say the single word that rises. The room has heard it 100 times already. The voice clicks off. The steel remembers the sound anyway. It lingers the way smoke does after a candle is blown out, a shape without flame. Specifics, the voice says when it returns. People hide under vague. He laughed small, I answer, like he didn't want to interrupt anyone. His right hand had a thin white scar across the back. Old. The room felt far away after, like we had all moved backward. Feet. Frozen. Then moving because the bodies around me moved. Where? Up the stairs. Left. Outside. What did you hear through the door? Nothing. Then someone crying into a jacket. Whose? I didn't look. You will now. The hallway rebuilds behind my eyes. Chipped paint near the hinge from too many boxes forced through. The stale mix of detergent and cold pizza. A song bleeding faintly from some other floor. A girl I knew by sight pressing her face into someone's sleeve and saying it was fine until the word turned into a sound. I try to pick out the face behind the sleeve and find only fabric and an outline. The door stays shut. The past refuses an edit. Do not tamper with the vent, the voice says, as if it felt my glance. Heat climbs into my face. My hand stalls a breath above the loosened screw. The warning lands like a palm to the back of the neck. I didn't. You thought about it. Thinking isn't a crime. It is here. Ethan's mouth ticks toward a humorless smile and gives up. The ties creak when he flexes, then go still. He saves his words the way he saves his breath. The slot opens again and bumps 2 warm bottles into the grit. I pass one to him and hold mine for later. He tips the neck to his mouth with the awkward care of someone trying not to drop a thing he can't bear to lose. Water tracks a clean line through the dust on his chin and disappears into the collar of his jacket. He stops before it feels good. We fall back into the sounds that are not words. The wall's steady pulse, the bulb's caged hum, the old, worn breath of the vent, a far, hollow thud beyond us, something heavy shifting on concrete, then stillness, like a lid settling. I anchor myself to small, useless facts because they are all I own. A broken wire looped back into the bulb's cage. Little volcano cones, where the welds rose and left dark commas on the ridges. A chip in the floor near the slot that looks like someone tried to pry it once. 14 rivets up to the cage, 9 across a panel. Numbers that won't open anything, but I count them anyway. The voice drags us back to the work. Timeline, it says. Sequence, failure points. I give it the clean version it wants. The chant gaining speed. The table pushed against the cinderblock wall. Slick floor from a spilled drink near the left ridge. The bottle passed too fast. Hands that should have held for real, pretending for each other. The room full of people in love with the idea of being harmless. We broke that idea. We left it on the floor with him. Passive hides the knife, the voice says. He fell because we let go, I say. Saying it tastes like rust. It also loosens something welded shut in my chest. Ethan breathes evenly, eyes on the numbers. He has learned to rest with his eyes closed without drifting. Sweat has dried to a thin salt at his temple. Every time he flexes his fingers, the ties mark him again. The lines will outlast this hour. He watches the way men watch a scoreboard when the clock is more important than the points. The container settles deeper into itself. Heat pockets under the bulb, then slides down in waves we only feel when we move. The cool by the floor holds its thin line. My knees have stopped complaining and gone numb, the kind that returns as pins when you stand. I don't stand. The steel keeps its weight exactly where it knows it will hurt most. Why now? Ethan asks the metal, voice rough from saving it. Because time is a shape, the voice answers. Sometimes you force it. He shakes his head once, a small no aimed at the floor. He doesn't debate. He already knows words feed the room. He turns his face to the wall and lets the numbers hold him up for another minute. The letter that has been stuck behind my teeth since the first box presses forward. A. Names drift through it like fish under thin ice. Aiden, Adam, Alec, Ash. And none stick. I do not say them. This place punishes guesses. It punishes silence too, but guessing feels like spilling oil into water, a mess that doesn't wash off. I hold the letter in my mouth like a seed under frost, and wait for the sun I don't have. The slot slides for nothing, moving air more than plastic. The draft cools my wrist for a heartbeat, and then is gone. The small mercy matters more than it should. This room knows how to feed hope without feeding bodies. The flash drive sits by my shoe, like a tooth pulled from a larger mouth. I don't pick it up. I've already heard all I need to hear. The steel holds the echo like a stain. When I blink, the old room runs in the dark of my eyelids. Blindfold, hands, tilt, impact, the late stop. I could paint it from memory if I had paint, and a wall that wasn't already telling another story. I catalog more details to keep from drowning. A coffee stain shaped like a comma on the study lounge rug. The crack on the library steps that catches ankles. The cheap plastic bins by the elevator stacked wrong on move-in day. None of it helps here. All of it keeps me from building a second container inside my head. Confession is measurement, the voice says, softer now, which makes it worse. Not performance. You said that, I answer, because answering is the price of breathing in here. You will feel it. Are you going to cut the time? When it teaches better than words. Do you enjoy this? I enjoy fit. A short silence follows, not empty. The steel seems to listen to itself. The tick crawls deeper into bone and becomes a second pulse. I tighten the tape around the scissor grips and smooth it down with my thumb. A small, stubborn act that doesn't change anything and still matters. Stay ready, Ethan whispers without opening his eyes. For what? For whoever he's bringing next. The seam owns the room even when it doesn't move. The air thins around it. The warehouse beyond us clears its throat and swallows its echoes. Somewhere far away, a chain lifts and drops. The sky above that roof is doing what it always does. In here, light clings where it lands and refuses to wander. I close my eyes because open or closed is the same color. The letter waits there. It does not grow. It does not leave. It presses against my teeth until my jaw aches. The hallway comes back. Paint chips, stale detergent, the sick sweetness of cologne in winter air. A girl saying it's fine, a voice agreeing because agreement is easier than help. The door never opens in that memory. The future does not break in. The speaker returns with no static, as if it has stepped closer. Next arrival soon. 2 words turn the air brittle. Ethan presses his head back into the corrugation until the ridges print his skin. He opens his eyes and keeps them on the numbers. I realize I've been counting the gulps between my swallows and stop, because counting turns into prayer, too quickly here. I set the bottle under my hip again for the cold and lay the scissors flat along my thigh. The floor takes heat as payment. The bulb hums. The vent grants another thin breath and retreats. I hold myself still enough to feel my own pulse against the steel. I feel the machine's pulse answer. For a moment, they match. Then mine slips. The wall does not. Use the time, the voice says. It means the minutes before the seam opens. It means the hours I already spent not calling. I let the clock inside the wall do its job and listen to it do mine. The letter sits where I can reach it when it decides to be heavy. The number on the wall does not move. I don't either. The room learns my weight again and keeps it until the next sound at the door. The seam wakes before the voice. Locks grind. Air knifes in and flattens the room to paper. A body slides over the threshold and meets the grit at my knees. The metal closes like a jaw. Darkness rushes back. The caged bulb drags itself alive, thin and yellow. She lies twisted on her side, wrists welded behind her with zip ties. One heel gone, stocking laddered to the knee. The smell reaches me first, paper and fine coffee crushed under sweat, and then the details sharpen. Dark hair pinned tight, glasses crooked, a smear of blood at the lip where tape bit. Her breathing is disciplined, small and even, as if held in a palm. Her eyes climb the wall, find the rusted grill, and hold there. Not us. Power. Ethan doesn't move. The bruise has settled into deep purple beneath his eye. The ties have etched glossy bands into his wrists. He watches her the way he watches numbers. Static lifts. The voice acknowledges her like a roll call. Professor Hargrove. Her chin lifts a notch. The tape shines in the weak light. A short nod. The slot scrapes and coughs the blunt scissors. I reach them before the room can change its mind. She doesn't flinch when I slide plastic under adhesive. The tape releases with a wet thread. She draws air in a cool ribbon and keeps her eyes on the grill. Water. I tap a bottle to her shoulder. 2 careful sips. Stop. Only then does she look at me, a counting look, then to Ethan, a placement, then back to the speaker. Welcome. This is unlawful. Correct. You won't get what you think you want. I will get the record. Whose? Yours. A swallow moves through her throat. The room hears it and stores it. You will speak clearly. The voice continues. Lies collapse minutes. Silence drops hours. She shifts upright with the kind of control built by podiums and long tables. Wrist bones jut beneath the ties. She smooths her skirt. She mends a run in a stocking with a useless tug. Calm expands until the walls have to make room for it. Where are we? Where time matters. Imprecise. Exact. She lets her eyelids meet once, a reset, then listens. Warehouse lungs, a chain dragged and set down, concrete thick with old echoes. I can tell when she understands that the sound will not give an address. She files that away too. Ethan's voice arrives without his eyes leaving the numbers. Save it. She does not give him her attention. The room has taught her what it takes and what it wastes. Tell me the chapter, she says to the grill, after the part where you filed a body under optics. The air contracts. Her face holds. Only the hinge of her jaw flexes and returns. When she speaks again, the tone is made for microphones, edges sanded to carry weight. You do not understand institutional risk. I understand breath that doesn't come back. Her gaze finds me fully then, stripping campus from my face, hoodie, library, a chair near the aisle, and leaving only the person. Something softens a fraction. It hurts in a way I refuse to have here. The slot rasps again. Paper slides through in a rubber-banded stack. The top page stares up with a font I could pick out across a hallway. Black rectangles mute names. Manage exposure. Wait for police language. Off-campus fraternity. No official event. Next of kin. Phrases polished to dullness. I set the stack at her knees. She turns pages with the backs of her fingers. Emails shift tone. Cautious, then armored. Verbs retreating into will consider and explore options. A line that stings in the wrist before the eyes finish it. Optics are not favorable. Another stack follows. Meeting minutes dry enough to burn. A long table pinned to the page by the idea of it. Attendees. Action items. Mitigate narratives. Express sympathy without admission. Engage student leaders to discourage rumor. The copy paper smells like a machine that's been running hot. The speaker waits, then presses. Say it. Her fingers tighten and ease. She lays the words out like stones. I knew. They are not surrendering words. They balance a ledger. I knew a student died after a prohibited event. She continues, each syllable heavier. I knew the administration wanted time to frame it. Ethan's eyes flick to her, then away. The plastic around his wrists creaks and quiets. He saves even his anger. The room taxes every kind of breath. What did you do? I advised caution. Wait for police language. Phrase the message around care and community. Delay the memorial to avoid disruption. Why? To protect the institution. And yourself. A beat. And myself. Why the word optics? Because donors watch, families watch, courts watch. The institution lives in those watches. The speaker shifts tonality by a fraction. A different tape unspools. A woman's voice fills the grill, hoarse and steady. A first name spoken twice, corrected to professor. A request for a meeting. A thank you for calling back. The sound of breathing that has forgotten everything but its job. No wail, just work. Julia's face locks into place. She holds the paper as if it pins her hands to purpose. Do you remember that meeting? Yes. What did you tell her? That the investigation would be thorough. Was it? No. The word sinks like a stone into a deep lake. The ripples roll back late, and hit hard. I feel them in my ribs. Ethan keeps his focus on the wall and rides them without looking for shelter. People hide under grammar. The voice goes on. Correct the record when it tries to hide. I understand. Do you? Yes. She does not plead. She catalogs. I told communications to hold the statement until campus police gave us phrases we could anchor to. I argued against naming the fraternity. I recommended a message that said tragic health event pending confirmation. I suggested postponing the memorial until after midterms to allow time for the community to process. She draws breath, and then the sentence that makes the air taste like copper lands with its own weight. I wrote the word community to avoid funerals. The box holds that line like a coin on the tongue. It does not melt. Ethan inhales through his nose, controlled. He doesn't add the obvious. It feels like respect. I see the hallway again. Paint nicked by too many boxes, stale detergent, cold pizza, a girl talking into a jacket, the syllable fine worn down to empty sound. I hadn't looked then. This room removes that option. It grants no corridors to stand in. Julia turns the stack so the pages face up as if this floor were a table. She is not asking for release. She is writing the rest of a syllabus no one wants to read. The vent loosens a thin thread of air. It grazes my wrist and draws back. The bulb sings its metal insect song. Somewhere outside, a heavy thing rolls one length of itself, stops. Concrete swallows the echo. Inside, the wall's pulse keeps auditing us. You want justice out of a container? Julia says after a long minute. Incorrect. Truth. A small nod, the kind you make to yourself to mark the next line of work. She studies the room differently now, not to escape, but to understand the shape of what will be asked. The seam, the slot, the vent, the way dust arranges itself where the bulb's heat pours. She looks down at her hands, and I notice the old thin scar on the back of her right, white and quiet. The boy's scar flashes against it in my head. Same place, different story. And then the rust dust on my own palm threads a third, smaller line. The room would draw a straight connection. I hold the image without letting it rearrange me. The voice returns with the tone of a clock. At the next mark, names. The letter that has camped behind my teeth swells. A. It does not divide. It sits like a door on a latch. The right weight will move it. I don't have that yet. Julia finally looks at me as if I am a student again, and the test will go on, with or without comfort. Breathe longer on the exhale. The instruction enters my chest like an old key. I obey because muscle memory predates fear. Air goes in rough, leaves smoother. The tick rides the leaving. The room teaches in its own way. Ethan shifts until the ridges print his skull. His posture is the same one you see on benches in locker rooms when the clock matters more than talk. He closes his eyes and holds the stillness without sliding off it. The slot opens for nothing. Air moves. No food, no tools. The mercy is measured and deliberate, a performance of generosity that costs the room nothing and costs us everything not to lunge at. The speaker breathes. You will not touch the vent again. My hand has not moved. My face heats anyway. I didn't. You thought about it. Thinking is not a crime. It is here. Ethan lets his mouth tilt toward a smile that never forms. He watches the grill with a fighter's patience, the kind that knows when a round is lost and when breath is all you can bank. The papers rest on her knees like relics in a museum that burned half itself to look beautiful. She tracks them with her eyes, not to relive, but to strip names down to actions. Titles mean less in this air. The voice changes register one more notch, quieter, in a way that tightens the skin. 12 hours, it says. Do not waste them. The seam doesn't stir. The bulb holds its tired light. The vent gives a thread, stops. The wall's pulse grows louder only because we listen. We settle into the hour like animals under a porch, storm moving over us with no opinion. I count the exhale the way she told me, and the tick lines up with it, a metronome that belongs to the leaving. The letter rests behind my teeth, warm now, heavier. I can feel it wanting shape. Ethan watches the numbers. 60 hours carves a smaller room inside the small room. Julia stares at the grill without blinking and makes a space inside herself where fear can't sit at the table. My knees have gone from ache to numb to a deep, humming hurt that feels like a second machine. The floor takes heat steadily, like a tithe. The emails on the paper glare up, black bars and blunt vowels. The meeting minutes flatten every verb they touch. Across all of it, a mother's voice hangs like a wire. Professor twice. Then the job of the lungs. I keep my hands busy with the tape around the scissor handles, smoothing, tightening, not because it will help, but because purpose, even borrowed, crowds panic to the edges. The tape warms under my thumb. The bulb smokes a breath and doesn't die. The vent's stingy draft tells me the world beyond the wall is still colder than this. That's geography I can use. I think of the basement without choosing to. The curl of his laugh, the blindfold, the scar on his right hand, in a line as thin as thread. The way my phone grew heavy enough to drop me through the floor, and I still didn't lift it. A chorus of don't. It'll make it worse. He's fine becoming law because too many mouths repeated it. The music pausing late. The room reassembling itself around the lie like nothing had happened. The professor breathes on the exhale and steadies. The athlete matches the clock and holds. I keep the letter warm. The voice has told us what the next hour wants. Names. The room has taught us what those cost. I rehearse the shape of the first one without saying it. The door on the latch waits. The hand that will open it is still mine. Breath has a price in here. In, hold, out longer than the in. Julia's instruction sits in my chest like a gear that finally found its teeth. On the exhale, the thin pulse inside the walls almost feels like a metronome I can borrow instead of fight. Almost. Heat continues to pool under the bulb. The floor keeps its cold for itself. Rust lives under the tongue. The box knows the old tricks of wear and plays them on a loop until the body stops arguing. Julia reads the printed pages again, eyes moving like a scanner. She isn't reliving anything. She is stripping the language to the bones it tried to hide. Ethan leans into the ridges until they map his skull. He holds still without giving in, the way you learn on benches when the clock matters more than talk. My knees slide from ache into a deep hum that makes the bones feel electric. Behind my teeth, the first letter of a name warms and refuses to grow. The speaker wakes without static. The voice has the calm of a measuring tape. At the mark, names. The word lands like a tool placed on a table. The letter presses harder against my teeth, warm, stubborn. I hold it until it burns, then let it go before it turns into a guess. Ethan keeps his eyes on the carved time, as if numbers can be convinced by focus. Julia doesn't blink. Ready. No. Proceed. A faint chemical edge moves through the air, the ghost of a storm. Ozone. The bulb throbs once like a sick heartbeat and steadies. The vent wheezes and goes still. The air loses a softness I didn't know I had. Skin inside the nose goes dry. The body notices before the mind does. Names. I shut my eyes and go back, because the only way forward in this place is back. The basement comes in pieces, cinder blocks, string lights, warm plastic cups, bodies packed too tight. The bottle passed too fast to belong to anyone. Hands that were for show until they weren't enough. The blindfold, the impact, the music stopping late, the way silence took the shape of a rule. I listened past the chant into the pocket where real words hid. A laugh that curled instead of burst. A girl behind me telling me not to call. A nickname thrown from across the room. A single syllable that hooked onto other words and dragged them. A. The vent stays stingy. The air thins by a slice. Small moves large here. Names, it will be wrong. Silence is wrong. The flyer floats up in memory the way paper does when it wants to be wind. Corners curling, tape going brittle. A photo printed too bright, teeth too white, eyes without shadow. A block of letters I walked past every day and refused to focus on. I try now and the word jumps away, rabbit fast. The wall's hum deepens, like a machine turning its hand to show another side. The bulb blinks slow and returns. Demonstration. The light cuts. Dark falls in a single piece. A lid. Heat leaks into the air and dies. The sound outside arrives with the dark. A short cry strangled by cloth. Panic that doesn't loop clean. The floor catches the vibration and brings it inside. It feels like a hand shaking my sternum from the back. My palm finds the seam. The metal is cold and still, but the shaking sneaks through bone anyway. Stop. Names. The breathing on the other side tears, slows, tears again. A small clatter. The sound ends and leaves pressure behind. The metallic taste thunder leaves when it goes. The bulb staggers back to life. The soft yellow shows wet brightness along new cuts that weren't there before. Fresh grooves glint lower on the wall, clean-edged. For a heartbeat my eyes don't read. They only know. Then the numbers settle into meaning. 36 hours. Air leaves me on its own. Ethan's face hardens into something smaller than fear and tougher than anger, the thing that makes you play through injury. His wrists flex once against the ties and stop. Julia's mouth finds a flat line and holds. The room doesn't gloat. The voice measures. Time moves when you hold it back. The vent gives a mean thread, then stops like a second hand catching. The skin around my nose stings. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. I work saliva like a trick. Swallow. Feel the swallow like a stone. The smell of heated metal ghosts through and fades, like a toaster left on without bread. The cage around the bulb warms. The hum goes a shade higher. The slot slides open and shut without mercy. No food, no more water. A draft as performance, control as air. Names. A shape forms and breaks. The wrong version first, as always. I hold it behind my teeth like a live wire and do not let it touch the air. Guessing is a way to bleed here. Count slower. Julia's 2 words carry a classroom into the box. I obey because muscle memory predates fear. In for 4, out for 7. The leaving steadies. The wall meets the leaving. The tick stops being an enemy for 1 minute. Absurd and true. You are learning. I save breath by not answering. The warehouse beyond rolls something once across concrete, corrects, stops. A chain lifts and lets itself down an inch. This place has done this 1,000 times for cargo that did not breathe. We are only new to ourselves. The basement rebuilds against my will, now that pain has warmed the ground. The scar on his right hand, thin and white, flashes under colored light. Shoulders move inside a shirt that fits wrong. The chant turns into a machine that doesn't need a person to run it. Someone throws a short name into the noise. It hits the low ceiling and breaks. I stand on the second stair and feel the phone in my pocket like a brick I refuse to lift. The girls behind me say, "Don't. It will make it worse." He's fine. The words turn into law because too many mouths repeat them. I set my tongue on the letter and test the corner of the next. I could force a mouth shape and be wrong out loud. I could keep it and be wrong. The room counts both. Julia closes the paper stack as if ending a meeting. She straightens her glasses with the heel of her hand. A small muscle jumps at the corner of her mouth. Nothing else moves. Ethan slides one leg long to ease a cramp. His shoe scrapes grit into a pattern and erases it. He breathes and matches the wall enough to survive this minute. He looks at the seam without meaning to, then away before it turns into a hunger. The bulb dims and recovers. The heat near it grows a thin skin. The floor stays cold like a secret it refuses to tell. The box teaches the lesson I hate most. The body can live on less than it thinks, for longer than it wants. Measurement. The voice lays the word down like a ruler. What you held back cost 24 hours. Math runs itself whether I want it to or not. 72, 60, 36. Not numbers. Doors closing. Pressure increases by units my ribs understand better than my head does. Consequence does not end here. You will have another arrival. Ethan's eyes open and hold the seam like a rival. He spends one word. When? Soon. Air moves under the door in a way that is not a draft, but a change in pressure that lifts the small hairs along my knuckles. The warehouse clears its throat. The box leans into its bolts. The pulse in the wall keeps doing the only job it has ever had. Machines are clean like that. I try the letter on my tongue the way a lock tries a key it hasn't seen in years. It lifts. A second shape tests itself and fails. I let it go. Try again. The brain hates this. The body hates the brain for making the air worse. The slot opens and closes without gift. The point is hate. The point is control. 2 small swallows fail to feel like anything. The bottle is warm from body heat. The plastic tastes like future waste. I cap it and hide it under my hip because the cold on bone is the only luxury this place sells. Julia looks at me and gives permission without words, the thin line teachers offer before the test gets worse. Keep the body. Sell everything else if you have to. The hum in the wall slips down a note, like a generator settling into a different load. The bulb flickers and holds. Sweat gathers along my hairline and cools into film. My mouth dries again. I count longer on the out. It works. It doesn't help. The voice doesn't return. It doesn't need to. It has left a number, a smell, a door. It has left the knowledge that time moves, whether I use it or not. Ethan adjusts into a posture that hurts less now and worse later. His eyes stay on the seam. His wrists shine raw where plastic has bitten its line 100 times. He keeps breathing like a metronome set on a piano. No one can play. Julia sits straight-backed, hands quiet. The papers at her knees glare up, all black bars and blunt vowels. The minutes flatten verbs. The mother's voice that came through earlier hangs like wire between everything else. Professor twice, then the work of lungs. The basement advances again because my mind has given it the right to. He scratches at the blindfold knot with the hand that carries the scar. Someone calls a short name. It lands and slides away. The floor comes fast and loud. I flinch late even in memory. The girls repeat the rope that turns into a snake. Weight finds the shape behind my teeth. Not letters yet. Mass. I hold it there and breathe around it. It is almost a door. The seam makes a small sound that isn't a lock but is near it. Metal rearranging itself in sleep, a hinge clearing its throat. Attention shifts with it, because that's what bodies do when doors remember they exist. Soon. The voice answers the question none of us put in the air. A lock clicks, thinks about itself, doesn't finish. The room tightens by idea alone. The floor hums. Light takes on the thin color of dawn, in places that never see it. We keep still because there isn't another choice. The number glows dull in the cage's halo. 36 hours cuts a smaller room inside the small room. The wall breathes its machine breath. My tongue finds the letter again, and when I touch it this time, it doesn't slip. It grows heavy in the mouth, the way a name does when it stops being sound and starts being a door. Metal moves. One bolt slides back with a sound that climbs my shins. Another follows, slower, like a lesson. Air leans toward the opening that isn't open yet. Dust lifts and hangs. Heat steps back a shade to make space for whatever is coming. The seam widens. A knife of white cuts the floor and climbs the wall, slicing our time in half. The light finds the new numbers and makes them shine like teeth. The voice uses none of its earlier words. It lets the moment speak for itself. Something shifts outside, weight dragged, a shoe scuffing concrete. The slit grows. The air smells like colder air trying to enter a hot mouth. My name comes from beyond the metal. Not the voice that owns this place. A different voice that once knew where I put the spare key. A voice that feels like a hand at the small of my back, pushing me forward into a party I didn't want to attend. Claire. It lands inside the box and turns everything sharp. I don't remember standing. I am already on my feet when the seam opens enough for the shape to find the threshold. The light fills the slit and swallows detail. The wall's pulse climbs into my jaw. Heat and cold trade places, and then stop. The door holds in its half-open mouth. The box gathers breath to become smaller again. The sound of my name still shakes the air when the voice in the speaker returns, close enough to touch without touch. Welcome your next truth. Light splits the room like a blade. Metal releases in a grind I feel in my teeth. Air rushes in colder than anything we've had, and a figure hits the threshold hard enough to scatter grit. The door bites closed. Darkness piles back in. The caged bulb claws toward life and smears a tired yellow over dust and bruises and steel. He's on his side, wrists cinched behind him, tape crooked over his mouth, hair damp and matted to his forehead. The leather jacket is scuffed white along one sleeve, the black worn thin at the seam. The tattoo at his wrist peeks under the plastic, black ink veined with red from the tie. His breath comes in short, angry pulls he's trying to hide. The smell rides in after him, road dust and cold air, and the bitter edge of fear that doesn't care who owns it. My name is still ringing in the metal from outside, echoing off seams like a bell someone struck and walked away from. The shape on the floor shifts, rolls to a knee, finds the wall by instinct. When he looks up, the bulb puts a weak halo on a face I used to trace with my thumb. Ryan. The word forms without leaving my mouth. It lands behind my teeth like a hot coin. My body stands without asking permission. My knees forget the ache long enough to move toward him, then remember and lock. The box pulls at me in equal directions. Go. Don't, until the floor decides for me and keeps me where I am. Static combs the ceiling. The voice drops in calm and close. Welcome. Ryan's eyes cut to the grill, then back to me, too fast to be choice. He makes a sound through the tape, not a word. The slot clatters. The blunt scissors nudge across the grit. I reach them. My hands aren't steady. The tape peels in a slow, wet thread. His breath hits my fingers, hot and sour with adrenaline. The plastic comes free. He takes in air like he has a right to it. His eyes find mine and stay. My chest goes tight around a second heartbeat. The last time I saw him, we were two people in a doorway, trying to turn the argument into anything else, and failing. He walked and didn't look back. The door took that moment and turned it into a year. He flexes his mouth until circulation stings. His voice arrives raw. Claire. I nod because anything bigger will fall apart. He glances at Ethan and counts him, then at Julia and learns her fast, then back to the speaker the way animals triangulate thunder. The voice measures the room again. Claire, Ethan, Professor Hargrove, Ryan. Time holds at 36 hours because you pushed it here. Use it. The bulb ticks once. The vent gives a cooler thread that dies a foot from the floor. The air feels thinner anyway. My tongue finds the letter I've been carrying and presses it back down before it turns to the wrong name. Ryan shifts until his shoulder finds a groove in the corrugation. He tests his wrists and stops when plastic complains. He leaves his hands where they hurt and moves the rest of him instead. Small adjustments that cost less. His gaze lands on the numbers gouged into the wall and hardens. What did you do? Ethan doesn't look away from the count. Woke up in a box. That's not what I asked. Ask the wall. Julia watches the new arrival with a kind of composure that has saved people in meeting rooms and failed them everywhere else. Her voice drops into the space as if it had a right to live here. Water. I pass a bottle into the crook of Ryan's elbow. He tips awkwardly and drinks the way you do when your body has been told no too long. He stops before he wants to. He breathes and looks at me again, and the line of his mouth is the old one. Stubborn, kind in secret. I want to touch his sleeve and don't. The last time I touched him, the world hadn't learned to shrink yet. The speaker smooths the air with the feel of paperwork sliding across a desk. Orientation is complete. Confession resumes at the mark. Delay collapses minutes. Lies take hours. Ethan's eyes flick to Julia in a quick cut I almost miss. Distrust throws a shadow on his face and stays. He stares at the professor, the way you stare at a closed door that should have been open. She doesn't flinch. She holds her spine with the same economy she used when she listed the emails and made each sentence a stone. Ryan's attention circles back to me and locks. Why am I here? The answer is a shape still forming. The outline fits too many nights, too many choices I didn't make. He was at the party, or outside it, or the person I called afterward and didn't tell the truth to. He was a witness to me, which is sometimes worse than a witness to anything else. The old smell of that basement sneaks under the rust and oil and makes a home in my throat. The music that paused late, the blindfold knot, the white line scar on the back of a hand that isn't mine, the chant turning into machinery, the girl behind me repeating, "Don't," until it lost meaning, the way I chose not to act and then chose it again. Ryan reads all of that on my face because he always could. He doesn't rescue me from it, and he doesn't push. He saves breath. He has learned how to do that. The floor's grit has crept under my jeans and mapped my knees in a grainy rash. The thin draft from the vent strokes the bone there and withdraws like it regrets kindness. The bulb's cage glows faintly with stored heat. The speaker waits with the patience of a clerk. The wall keeps its pulse because it doesn't know how to stop. The memory opens another door without asking. Ryan at a different table, in a different room, winter under his jacket, hand on a cup that steamed the air between us. The fight that wasn't a fight, just the long, slow pulling apart of two people who needed the other to be braver. He wanted me to speak, and I didn't. He wanted the world to make sense, and I couldn't sell him that. We walked away with versions of the truth folded into our pockets, still warm, useless. Ethan shifts, and the ties whisper. He has become a set of angles built for holding position. He looks at Ryan with the appraisal men give each other when neither wants to lose the next inch. Were you there? Ryan's jaw tightens. Where? You know where. Julia's look cuts between them, then to me. No use burning oxygen. Ryan's breath scrapes once against his throat. He lets the question sit until silence takes it apart. He changes the subject without warning. How many? Us, Ethan says, and beyond this wall. Enough. Ryan tips his head back and touches skull to steel. The ridges print him. He closes his eyes without sleeping. The plastic bites across his wrists like a narrow mouth. He twists until the tie sings and then stops, recalibrated. The voice returns without snow in it. Claire, you are closer to the name. You will speak it at the next tone. The letter in my mouth kicks like a small animal. The second letter tries to live and dies. Getting there feels like drowning with time to think about it. I swallow, and my throat remembers its own work. Ryan hears the shift in me and makes his voice a knife laid flat. You know it. I know pieces. Make them hold. I will. Ethan makes a short sound I can't place. Anger, agreement, or the way a body vents pressure without getting permission. Julia studies Ryan the way she studied those pages, stripping him to actions. There's no room in here for the rest. The slot scrapes open and rolls a strip of gauze toward the center of the floor, followed by 2 packets of something that looks like sugar and tastes like chalk when it isn't medicine. The room does this sometimes, mercies that announce themselves like favors. Ryan stares at them, then at the grill and laughs without sound. The vent breathes once and stops. The bulb ticks as if an insect is trapped in it again. Outside, concrete stirs and goes flat. Far away, a door in a different building opens and closes, or I imagine it, because the brain will do anything for doors. Ryan shifts again until his shoulder touches steel, a small press for pressure's sake, something real against the skin. His jacket creaks. He smells like night air that couldn't come here. His voice lands on the floor and doesn't bounce. What did he want you to say? The truth. That's his word. It's the only one this room speaks. Then say it. I will. Before he teaches us another lesson. I nod. The motion is small and costs more than it should. The timer on the wall doesn't move when I do it. The numbers sit like teeth. The air inside this box is a mouth. Breathing is always a bite. Ethan's eyes cut to Julia again. Suspicion sharpens into a point I can feel across the space. He is listening for the sound of a mask slipping. She gives him nothing. She holds her body like evidence she has already submitted. The old thin scar on the back of her hand catches the light when she adjusts her glasses, and my brain lays that line over the boys, and then over the rust on my own palm. 3 marks that refuse to live on the same map, and still do. Static slides across the grill like a breath pulled through teeth. The voice warms the next minute in its mouth. At the mark, Ryan will confer his history with yours. Delay collapses minutes. Ryan huffs a sound that is not agreement and not refusal. He rolls his shoulders and sets his spine to the wall, as if a posture can be an answer. He speaks, not loud, not for the room, only for us. I wasn't there when he fell. A hollow opens up next to the letter in my mouth. Relief wants to grow there. Guilt does first. But, he adds, and the air tightens. I knew what was planned. I told myself it wouldn't escalate. I told myself I'd walk in if it did. He looks at me when he says the last part. He doesn't ask me to forgive him with my eyes. He asks me to stand inside the same wrong shape and admit it. The box listens the way a courtroom does when someone finally uses a verb that sticks. The pulse in the wall doesn't quicken. The machine doesn't reward anything with music. It only keeps keeping. Julia shifts her weight to ease a muscle without looking like she did. We can stack truth, she says. Build weight. Ethan's laugh is one breath long and has no joy in it. And what do we buy? Air. The speaker doesn't weigh in. It doesn't need to. It has already taught us the exchange rate. The bulb hums. The vent denies. The concrete beyond us moves something heavy and stops it again. The floor takes our heat and doesn't return it. The room edits us until only function remains. I lower my breathing into the groove Julia carved for me, out longer than in, until the edge of the panic dulls enough to think. Ryan scrapes grit with the heel of his boot until he's traced an invisible line and erased it. His voice finds the tone we used when life was simpler, when asking me to get out of bed for class felt like a favor that needed gentleness. You can do it. I know. Make it land. I will. Ethan's jaw flexes. The bruise under his eye has gone from purple to something darker, the kind of blue that stops naming itself. He looks strong in the way wreckage sometimes looks strong, angles and hard edges that weather can't move anymore. He watches us and the numbers both, and you can't tell which is a scoreboard and which is a grave marker. The voice arrives like a metronome set on a desk. Mark. The letter behind my teeth turns heavy enough to drag the second with it. Sound gathers at the back of my mouth like a storm that wants to happen. The memory sharpens until it cuts. A short name thrown into a crowded room and bounced off a low ceiling. The scar on a right hand. The blindfold knot. The laugh that curled. The chant becoming a machine no one owned. The choice I didn't make when my phone weighed nothing and everything. I open my mouth. The bulb whispers. The vent refuses. The wall keeps its pulse. Ryan's shoulder touches steel. Ethan's eyes are on the numbers. Julia's calm is a line on water. The voice waits. I find the first sound and hold it there, half-born. The room pulls in a breath through the seam, as if the door was thinking about itself. Outside, something small drops on concrete and doesn't break. Heat presses under the bulb. Cold lifts from the floor. The machine in the wall measures all of it. Time stands on my tongue and refuses to jump. The name gathers weight. The air tightens until it thrums. The bulb ticks. The name builds and breaks on my tongue like a wave that won't choose its shore. The room feels the failure. Heat clings under the bulb. The vent goes stingy, then still. The air thicks to something you chew. A dry click touches the grill. The voice folds around the second and owns it. Proceed. Sound refuses to shape. The first letter presses forward and sticks. My throat closes the way a door swells in rain. Another tone slides out, thin and cold. Punishment for hesitation begins. Dark drops in one piece. Heat keeps radiating from the dead bulb like a coal in a can. Somewhere beyond the wall, a wheel rolls a short distance and stops, and the floor learns it before my ears do. The air turns old. I can smell everyone we've been since we got here. Sweat stacked over fear. Plastic over rust. Ethan shortens his breath, finds its leash, and walks it back to steady. Julia's calm tightens into something narrow, that can hold a body together when the room won't. Ryan angles his shoulder to the steel like he's plugging himself into an outlet made of pain. A hiss leaks along the seam, not cool, just drier, the kind that turns the inside of your nose to paper. The metal seems to flex around us, a breath that isn't ours. The voice leaves the lesson there like a sign hammered to a post. Truth buys air. Evasion takes it. The bulb claws back, weak and yellow. The vent grants a thread and closes its hand. The slot spits a small recorder across the grit. Its face is cracked. Glue shadow marks a corner where a sticker used to be. The speaker clicks it alive without letting us touch it. A room wakes inside the box. Low ceiling, cheap speakers choking on bass, a chant finding feet, a whistle misfiring. A girl near the mic tells someone not to film. A boy laughs and says relax. Then a short name cuts over it all, clean at first, then warped by the weight of bodies. It lands like a hook and drags the rest of the sound with it. 8. Static eats the rest. The recorder clicks dead. The grill fills the gap. You were there. Name him. The letter rolls under my tongue like a small bearing. The next sound hunts its shape and fails. Heat presses down. Cold climbs up through my shins. The box prefers clean failure to this slow one. I can feel it sharpening. The urge to blurt anything comes hot. I strangle it and keep breathing. Ryan threads a voice through the narrow gap between order and collapse. We go in turns. Details. Ethan doesn't leave the numbers. Not a game. It keeps minutes from falling. Julia tips her chin once. Sequence matters. The voice doesn't endorse. It doesn't need to. The vent loosens half a breath, then stinginess again. Ethan starts because he knows games still run when you refuse to name them. He watches the carved time like it will answer to him and lays down a flat sentence, the way you read a trainer the truth and nothing extra. I locked the side door from the stairwell, told myself it kept strangers out, it kept help out. The room swallows it the way a furnace takes paper. A notch eases. Not generous, less cruel. Julia keeps her eyes on the vent as if it were a jury. 2 weeks before, an anonymous report named that basement and 3 upperclassmen. I logged it. I filed it under monitor. I did not escalate. Nothing shifts. The lesson is plain. Some truths are currency. Some are receipts. She keeps going, voice dulled on purpose. The night after, I asked campus police to soften their first email. I suggested tragic circumstances pending confirmation. I told myself, precision prevents panic. The vent breathes once. The bulb hums high and thin. The heat calms by a degree. Ryan angles his face toward the grill, like a witness stand. I knew the plan. Told myself it would stay stupid, not deadly. I left town. Kept my phone on loud. Didn't pick up when the number wasn't a name. He stops at the dam and holds back what's behind it. The box does not praise. Truth buys air. Continue. I pull a shard I've kept in dark. Second stare, open call screen. Didn't press. Told myself it would make it worse. A breath of draft moves over my lip, thin as a thought, and still it helps. Ethan lays another stone. I led the chant twice. Before the turn, it counts. Something small loosens, like a gear releasing a half-tooth. Julia adds another piece. Next day, I told a student reporter to wait for an official statement. I used rumor, though I had more than rumor. I asked her to think of the community. The vent rests. The bulb holds its insect wine. Ryan exhales through his nose, the sound of a man who hates the shape of the truth and will carry it anyway. 2 months earlier, I told Claire to go to the office if she saw something. Said she owed it to herself. I didn't go. The silence that follows agrees without softening. Telling someone to be brave is cheaper than being it. The recorder skates and knocks my knee. It starts again without a finger on it. The same night from someone's pocket. The short name is clearer now, unwarped for a heartbeat. It rises and holds. Al. Static clamps a hand over its mouth. The voice steps on the beat that follows. Name him. My mouth dries to paper. The letter heats. The second sound lifts and trembles. I can feel its shape against my teeth, and still it won't cross. Light dims and returns. Heat presses. The air tastes like the inside of a battery. I go back to the only order that has ever worked here. Out longer than in. Make room. Ryan watches me the way he used to when a text was too hard, and I refused to admit it. He's not a ghost. I know. Say what you're sure of. Short name, clean. His laugh curled. That buys air. It isn't enough. Ethan's jaw knots. He looks at Julia, and the sentence he's not letting loose hums in the space like a wire. She meets him without blinking. The restraint between them is its own sound. The vent surrenders another mean thread and clamps. The voice changes direction. Describe the moment of choice. Smell arrives first. Beer sour, bleach too clean, a sweet cologne wrong in winter. Texture after, paint chipped at the hinge, sticky floor by my left shoe. Weight last, my phone a brick and a feather depending on what I wanted. I stood, didn't move, put the call screen away, waited for an adult. None came. Ethan breathes once like a thing warning you it's alive. I hit the light switch without thinking. Darkness ate a second we needed. Julia's tone thins to wire. I drafted steadied. I attached bullet points. I wrote hold. Ryan presses his bruise to steel as if pain could authenticate truth. I said I'd show if the line crossed. I made the line elastic. The vent opens a sliver and closes. The box writes all of it down, in the way machines count. No praise, only record. The voice returns to center. Claire. The name holds the air. The letter pushes up, bolder, as if it has learned the path. A second sound climbs with it, half-shaped, like a wave collapsing before it crests. I ride the leaving breath and keep my mouth open. Light thins. Heat lifts a fraction. The pulse in the wall keeps its indifferent beat. Sweat cools into film at my hairline and becomes a headache behind my eyes. My tongue tastes iron. Ryan's tone drops to something you have to lean toward. Closer. I know. He deserves the door. I know. Julia doesn't look at me, doesn't look away. Stack one more. The voice permits with absence. Continue. I bring a small piece and lay it where the room can turn it into air. He wore a bracelet with his sister's initials. He checked it when he laughed. The vent opens the width of a blade and shuts. The bulb holds. The wall keeps time. Ethan gives one word that isn't instruction and isn't prayer. Closer. Ryan flexes against the tie until it sings. Make it land. The speaker clicks. The sound is small and final. At the tone, the clock adjusts. A tiny motor rolls in the wall under the floor, a change in the hum. The seam breathes and stops. The warehouse swallows its noise. Inside, the box poises with its hand on the numbers. It will spare nothing if I fail again. It will spare nothing if I don't. I pull air in a thin coil, let it go long, and bring the first syllable to the edge. Sound gathers. Weight comes with it. The shape fits the jaw. I feel the rest of it ready. A scrape interrupts beyond the wall, metal dragged and set down. A shoe scuffs concrete. The seam pulls another shallow breath and holds. The voice uses the noise like punctuation. Every lie brings the tone early. I keep the name where it is, heavy and wanting, and give the room one more detail to buy the last inch. He called his mom after midterms, on speaker. He said the campus smelled like rain. He laughed at how he said it. The vent yields a thin mercy. The bulb holds steady. The pulse continues its work. Ethan tips his head back to let the ridges print him. Now. Ryan doesn't blink. Do it. Julia's calm gets edges. On the leaving. I do. The breath opens a pocket the room hasn't closed yet. The name sits there and stops being shy. It wants to be said. It wants to be a door. The voice arrives over the top of it with a new recording and ruins the luxury of choice. One line. A boy's voice, clean with a smile. The syllables land whole inside the box. Alex. Silence holds the name the way a palm holds a coin. My mouth is already open. The room waits to see if it will become mine, or if I'll let it lie there like a thing I was handed and refused to touch. I taste the metal of it. The weight is right. The shape is right. The guilt is worse for how easy it is to carry, now that it finally has edges. Alex. The word leaves me and hits the wall harder than I expect. The pulse in the metal doesn't change. The bulb doesn't flare. The vent doesn't gift us a clean breath. The room is a clerk stamping a paper. The nonsense of relief steals half a second anyway. The voice answers that second with a counting. Record taken. Heat backs off by a small degree. The air gains 1 inch of softness. The floor returns a sliver of warmth that isn't kindness so much as physics remembering itself. The recorder lies quiet, face down, a mouth without work. Outside, a wheel rolls 5 feet and stops as if the world wanted to change scenes and decided to hold. Ethan closes his eyes the way fighters do between bells. The bruise under his eye has gone past purple into colorless knit. His breath evens like something used to impact. He opens his eyes and pins the numbers again, as if any of this can be stared into obedience. Julia's hands flatten on the floor. The old scar on the back of her right hand glows chalk white. She closes the stack of papers and turns them so the blank backs face up. A habit without furniture. Ryan watches me. He doesn't nod. He doesn't touch. He lets the name live on the air as its own proof. His voice is only breath thickened into sound. Keep going. The voice doesn't say good. It sets another rule on the table instead, a new blade shining. Names lead to deeds. At the next mark, you will map who held and who let go. The bulb hums. The vent releases nothing. The seam settles. 36 hours gleams like a second box inside the first. The body understands the price of the next part before the mind does. My mouth dries again. My knees burn where the grit found skin. My tongue still tastes iron from carrying the word. I feel the door shift inside my head. The one I kept on a latch. The one I let breeze in and out of for a year. It swings wider now. I see the bracelet. I hear the laugh that curled. I see the blindfold knot. I feel the second I let go and watch hands miss, and know that missing was enough. The speaker clicks once more. At the mark, the clock will respond. I look at the numbers and understand what respond means. I breathe on the leaving. I keep the shape of the next confession where it can't escape. The box counts down whether I give it anything or not. The name still hangs in the air between us, clean and terrible, and the hour leans toward it, like metal to a magnet, ready to find out what it will cost to say who held, who let go, and who watched the fall. The name hangs in the metal and refuses to fade. Alex turns the air into a sharper thing. The box holds it the way a mouth holds a coin. I taste iron. I taste rain. Even the dust seems to change shape, like it knows what it belongs to now. The voice waits until the echo thins. Map the hands. Heat swells under the bulb and stays. The vent pinches to a stingy seam of air, and then pretends it never opened. The floor keeps its winter in my knees. The wall's hidden heartbeat keeps time for everything, patient and indifferent. I build the moment again, because I have to. Cinder block at my shoulder, a table shoved crooked so its leg bit concrete and squealed whenever weight shifted. Faces crowding to become one animal. The blindfold knot on the back of his head, tight as pride. The bottle moving too fast to belong to a person. Hands where arms should have been. Fingers that gripped for show, not for weight. A ring flashed, crest cut into gold. A sleeve with 3 stitched bars. A rubber wristband pressed a dent into skin. They all helped, until they didn't. He swayed left to correct and found air. Who held? Who let go? Ethan stares at the carved time as if staring could grind it back. The bruise under his eye has sunk into a color the body invents when it runs out of names. Zip ties have left glossy grooves in his wrists. He speaks the way a man lists injuries to a medic. Elbow. Lost grip. Figured someone had the other side. The vent breathes a shallow line along my lip and steals it back. Not mercy. Measurement. Julia sits upright with her hands on her knees, the old white scar on the back of one catching light. When she talks, her voice is a column of numbers. Not present. My hands let go later. I substituted titles for names and called it care. Ryan keeps his shoulder to the corrugation, like a man plugged into pain, just to feel real. The plastic bites deep into his wrists. His words are clean. I passed a key to the side door, told myself it was helping. It helped the wrong thing. I lay mine where the room can use it. I had the call open. My thumb hovered. I put the screen away and watched. Silence falls like grit on wet paint and sticks. The voice doesn't comfort. It clicks the next rule into place. Assign blame. We could point. We could throw faces like stones and feel the small fake lift of the first second. The air stiffens when I imagine it. The box would enjoy the mess. I count on the leaving. 7. Hold the empty. Let breath wander back on its own. Panic loosens its teeth by a tooth. Ryan watches the work like he could carry part of it for me. He can't. He doesn't try to pretend. Verbs. Ethan's mouth moves once, a slow decision. Reckless. Julia answers without flinch. Strategic. Coward. Yes. The voice interrupts before the room can choose a trench and build a wall in it. Consequence at the mark. The seam inhales and holds. A soft clatter under the floor. The sound of a thin chain reseating a gear. Light dims and then hardens. The vent closes its fist. The box changes shape by idea, not inches. My lungs understand anyway. Before the next hour ends, one of you will stop breathing. The sentence is weight. It settles on the chest and sits. It owns space the way a person does. Every inhale counts twice, not because oxygen is short, but because fear is long. I feel the group tilt around it. Ethan goes very still. Stillness is his truce with terror. Julia presses her palms to her knees as if pinning herself to the floor. Ryan checks me the way he used to check weather before a long drive. Do we have enough to make it? No one answers out loud. Begin. We start because there is no other motion left. I touch the second before the fall. Alex flexed his fingers. The scar flashed, a thin white line someone else gave him years ago. His shoulders rolled under a shirt too stiff at the seams. The chant turned into machinery that didn't need a driver. Hands lost purpose. I put my thumb on the call and lifted it away. Then the sound that splits a room. I saw and didn't fix seeing. Ethan speaks from far down inside. I loved being loud more than being right. Julia lets the office crawl back up her spine and face the box. I fit consequence to optics, until optics looked like ethics. Ryan turns distance into a confession. I made not showing up a virtue that let me sleep. The vent opens a razor width and shuts. The bulb's hum drills a new line through my skull and holds. The numbers on the wall do not blink. 36 hours sits inside the room like a second cage. The seam clicks, a lock thinking about itself. It breathes and doesn't open. The floor learns the sound and sends it into my bones before the ear catches it. Waiting becomes the test. Choose who pays. The word is set like a knife. It doesn't need a hand to cut. Every instinct I have reaches for motion. Tear at screws, slam the door seam with the heel of my palm, bargain at the grill, give the room anything. The box is made to eat that kind of motion. It will turn it into heat and leave us with less air. Ethan opens his hands like an offering. Me. No. No. I don't speak. The word lives behind my teeth anyway. No. The vent answers with stale. The bulb keeps its insect song. A sound moves through the wall, small and human, skin scraping something that refuses to give, not a scream. The work of a person trying to keep the shape of a breath. 3 beats. Stop. The air carries the dent it leaves. Please. My voice is dry enough to crack. Not like this. Delay collapses minutes. I hear the numbers before I see them. The light thins, and the fresh cuts appear under it, as if a hand presses a blade from the other side. Metal shavings curl and cling. The new time bites into the wall. 24 hours. My ribs cinch another notch. The floor tilts in my body and not under it. A wheel rolls somewhere outside and stops, as if the world remembered we are here and chose not to care. The container does not gloat. It stares. Return to the fall. I go because there is nowhere else. Alex swayed and corrected and found air. The room's courage collapsed into a hush that posed as respect. The bottle stilled on the wood like a tool someone finally put down. Somebody said he's fine. The words turned into law because enough mouths repeated them. I own the weight, I say. I own the not acting. I own the lie about being small. Ethan looks at me for the first time since the number changed. Not forgiveness, not accusation. Recognition, brief and hard. Julia lifts what she left on the floor. I own the strategy. I own tidy before accurate. Ryan adds the piece he kept because it made him feel better. I own the distance. The vent opens a knife blade of air and closes. The bulb holds. The numbers glare. The wall keeps counting. The recorder twitches and then lies still. The slot remains shut. The seam is a mouth that has learned patience. Time walks toward us with the calm of a thing that has never been wrong. Choose by the hour, or the hour will choose. I think of the 3 marks I keep seeing. The crest ring, the stitched bars, the rubber band. Faces try to grow on them. They won't. Maybe the box wants names because names are clean. Maybe it wants actions because actions cut longer. The voice likes verbs. It teaches with cost. It writes in lungs. Not him, Ethan says, and leaves the rest unsaid on purpose. Julia finds my eyes without breaking hers. Breathe. Ryan presses his shoulder deeper into steel, as if weight can be an answer. Keep the shape. The air thins by thought, not by measurement. Heat clings to the bulb cage and leaves the rest of the room. My mouth turns to paper. The water I have tastes like old plastic and still does its simple work. I carve space with the exhale until a pocket opens that panic can't fill. I map the second again and look where I refused. The crest ring belonged to a boy who liked to be seen. The sleeve with 3 bars belonged to one who earned them and never learned that rank is a poor grip. The rubber wristband lived on a wrist that fidgeted through every class. They held until they didn't. I see it plain. I feel the weight of fingers slipping. I hear Alex's breath as a question no one answered. The voice brushes the room with one quiet sentence that leaves a draft. At the mark, the clock will move again. We look at the wall because it is the only thing that bothers to change. Julia's mouth is a thin line. Ethan's jaw ticks in a rhythm that does not match the box. Ryan's breathing stays even on purpose. I hold the next confession where it can't blow away. I know who let go first. I don't know the name. I know the ring. I know the laugh he made when he thought no one could hear him. I know the way he looked down after. I can give the room that shape and let it turn into air. Crest, I say. Gold. He lost grip first. The vent loosens a breath. The heat eases a half degree. The wall seems to lean. Ethan adds the second line. Bars. Pulled away. Julia gives the third. Rubber band. Turned to watch the room. The container takes the map and files it where lungs live. It does not reward. It does not praise. The lesson is the lesson. You name how you failed, or the room does it for you. The seam wakes with a small scrape, not open, a tongue running along teeth. Outside, a cart rolls a short lane, pauses, rolls again. Metal touches metal. The floor repeats the news to my bones. The voice comes back with no tone at all. Before the next tone, choose. Everything in me starts to move. The body bargains with the impossible by trying to make shape out of it. I count breaths instead. I put the space in my chest ahead of the hour. I keep the name in my mouth because dropping it would be a second betrayal. I do not look at the vent. I do not look at the slot. I look at the carved number, because if anything can be convinced by attention, it would be a thing that only exists to change. Me, Ethan says again, quieter. No. Stop. Don't. We hold the words down so they don't eat the air. The room does not care what order we use them in. The wall's heartbeat keeps going. The bulb hums. The floor steals heat. Sweat cools on my scalp into a fine ache. Julia does not move. Ryan does not blink. I do not stand up because standing is a promise the room will make me break. A new sound enters, faint, high, like a frequency your bones hear before your ears do. The speaker breathes once and lets the thin tones stop. The threat grows teeth around it. I feel the box smiling in the way a trap smiles when it is sure of itself. I try the only thing that ever opened anything in here. A small truth that belongs to me and costs more than it should. I told Alex he looked good in that blindfold. I laughed like it wasn't a weapon. The air changes temperature the way water does when you walk into a lake. A slow, cold wrap over hot skin. The vent steals nothing more, but the room feels less cruel for one breath, and then remembers itself. The voice accepts the offering as if moving files to the right drawer. The next tone decides which body pays for the delay. Outside, something heavy sets down. The wall hum changes by a hair. The seam tightens. I hear a second hand I cannot see, clawing forward inside the metal. The timer is not the numbers. The timer is breath. We sink into a silence that grows edges. It crowds my ears until the tick in the wall is the only sound left that doesn't lie. I make the leaving longer than coming, and the room lets me. My body believes me for 3 breaths, and then doubts. I make it believe again. We don't choose. The voice has patience, the way ice has patience. The tone begins. It is thin and pure and merciless. It cuts the air and keeps cutting. The box listens to it like prayer. The seam breathes. The bulb steadies. The vent refuses. The sound threads my chest and pulls. Ethan looks at the door. Julia doesn't blink. Ryan's shoulder touches mine without moving. The tone climbs a fraction, opening a small door in my head where fear lives with a suitcase. I count. 7 out. 3 in. Again. Again. The tone holds. The box waits for a breath to stop. Outside, something shifts weight and slides. The floor translates the move into my bones. The number on the wall does not change yet. It shines like a threat we can't spend. The tone sharpens, bright as a needle. The voice speaks under it, so calm it cuts deeper. The hour chooses. The tone holds, thin and merciless, until it threads the room like wire. My teeth hum. The seam inhales. The floor carries a vibration before the ear does. Heat collapses under the bulb and spreads in a stale sheet. The vent pinches to almost nothing. I count the leaving of breath because it's the only thing I can count. A sound moves behind the wall. Not a scream. Breathing that lost its rhythm and is fighting for it back. A heel scrapes concrete. Chain ticks once. The tone climbs a fraction and keeps cutting. The body on the other side learns what the hour means, and so do we. Stop. The tone does not stop. Please. The wall keeps its patience. The breath on the other side tears, slows, tears again, then turns into silence so complete the dust seems to fall louder. The tone ends with no ceremony. The bulb steadies. The vent refuses. The box tastes the quiet like food. The speaker wakes without static. The hour chose. Ryan's shoulder finds steel. He doesn't look at me. Ethan tips his head back until the ridges print him. Julia puts her palms on her knees like she's pinning herself down. Witness and learn, the voice says, level. Map the circle. The floor keeps a faint echo of what happened next door. It travels up my bones and fades. I swallow metal and dust and the ghost of someone else's last air. The numbers on the wall keep shining, as if nothing at all changed. 24 hours. The second cage inside the first. Ryan's voice is a blade laid flat. Who was it? Record, not obituary. The voice replies, use what you have. Ethan's eyes don't leave the time. You just killed someone. 'Cause rests with choices made long before this room. A pause, thin as a breath. Begin. I go because there's nowhere else. The basement builds itself whether I ask for it or not. Cement block at my shoulder. A table shoved wrong so its leg bit concrete and whined when anyone leaned on it. Faces blurred into one animal. Lights strung too low, so they made halos out of dust. The blindfold's knot sat on the back of his head like pride. Hands that should have held were props. A crest ring flashed. A sleeve with 3 stitched bars pulled back when weight needed forward. A rubber wristband cut a dent into skin. He leaned left to correct and found air. Crest lost grip first, I say. The vent releases the smallest draft and steals it back. The room keeps its ledger tone. Ethan swallows hard enough that I hear it and lays his piece down without dressing it up. Bars pulled away. The bulb ticks once, a tiny fracture of sound. Julia looks at the grill as if she were meeting a judge who prefers math to begging. Rubber turned to watch the room. The container accepts. It does not reward. The hour has already done its teaching. The slot opens with a soft, practiced scrape. A phone slides into the grit, old model, screen spidered. It vibrates once and stops. The speaker clicks it alive without letting anyone touch it. My name lifts from the speakers in a version of my voice I don't recognize anymore, higher, wearing a smile to sound normal. I hear street noise, winter in it, the rattle of a bus turning. Then me. Can you call me back? It's not urgent. The recording ends. The air in the room leans. Ryan stares at the phone like it bit him. His jaw finds the shape I remember from a fight we didn't mean to have, and had anyway. The voice smooths the second, the way a clerk smooths paper. Timestamp. 22 minutes after Alex stopped moving. Ryan speaks without looking at me. You told me not to worry. I told you it wasn't urgent, I say, and the excuse sounds like a crack in old paint. I wanted to say it out loud, so it would be true. Ethan gives a dry sound that thinks about being a laugh, and doesn't. Truth by voicemail. Julia studies me with a kind of appraisal that leaves no place to hide. Not cruel, not kind, only exact. The speaker breathes, then makes the rule louder by making it calmer. You will stop building cushion with words. Which step, which hand, which choice. Use verbs or lose minutes. The vent stings my lips and closes. I go back under because this room does not stop asking. I put myself where I was. Second stare down, left side, back to the door, because the crowd jammed it. Phone open to the call screen, thumb floating and useless. The smell of beer warmed too long, bleach laid over it like it could fix anything, a sweet cologne wrong in winter. The music tried to keep being music, and failed. The chant became a machine. I buried the call screen, I say. I watched instead of acting. Ryan turns his head like he's checking if I'm still standing, but does not reach for me. He works his wrists against plastic until it sings and stops. I kept my phone on loud. I stared at an unknown number and let it time out. Ethan's sentence lands flat, a line on a medical chart. I cleared the stairwell. We made a circle when we should have made a straight line to a door. Julia folds what she's been holding and finally puts it down. I told communications to lead with care and community. I wrote hold in the subject line and believed I was steadying the ship. The recorder on the floor clicks and throws a new angle into the room. Not the basement. A hallway full of too bright morning. Shoes squeaking on floor wax. A copier warming up. A door with a coded lock thunks. The mic catches a whisper on a line not meant for it. Off campus. Tragic circumstances. Pending confirmation. The voice is careful. It is also mine, in the sense that it made a place for me to hide. Ethan's head tips toward Julia by a degree that hates itself for needing to. That your office? It is a building with offices. The voice answers for her. Context is for later. Sequence now. Ryan shifts until his shoulder digs into steel and stays. He was on the table edge. The wood shook under him. He reached for balance. He got hands that wanted to be seen helping more than they wanted to help. Words, the voice says, almost gentle. Make them do work. Ryan's tone flattens into weight. They let go. I lock my jaw and look where I have refused. I see the crest ring, not on a hand, but attached to a laugh that hid in the noise because the room taught it how. I see 3 stitched bars on a sleeve attached to a face that watched the wrong thing and thought rank could be a strength by itself. I see the rubber band on a wrist that never learned what a grip is supposed to be, except a habit. I see my thumb hover like a fool's candle. I see the way I told a voicemail that everything was fine. The speaker lands a single word and turns it into the only thing that matters. Again. The box wants the same truth from different angles until the angles cut. I give it. I didn't call because I didn't want to be the one who changed what the room believed it was. Ethan drags grit with his heel in a short arc and smooths it back to nothing. I kept the light low because I wanted the night to keep being night. Julia makes the hard sentence work. I made a story where the institution was the victim. Ryan bites down on softness until only function remains. I told myself I would arrive if it mattered. I made mattered. Tomorrow. The vent opens the width of a blade and closes. The bulb hums and refuses to die. The floor climbs into my knees like cold tide and stays there. The numbers on the wall don't blink. The name Alex hangs in the air the way a coin sits in a palm. Weight without motion. Division helps no one, the voice says, reading a room that's trying to split into corners. But division is what you built. Repair or become what you chose. Easy for a speaker, Ethan says, and the sound of it is exhausted, not brave. We have ribs. Ribs carry breath. Use them. The slot opens and spits a single sheet of paper this time, creased on one edge as if it had been folded and unfolded until the fiber thinned. I pick it up because no one else can. It isn't a report. It's a program from a campus memorial. A name printed in black beside a photo with too much light in it. A paragraph that says everything and nothing. A hallway smell of orchids that never touched the building where the air actually changed. At the bottom, a date we all ignored. Ryan stares at it. We weren't there. Ethan's mouth moves around a word he doesn't want to say and lets it out anyway. Cowards. Julia accepts it as if it were the right line in a ledger. Yes. The speaker takes us where it was always going to take us. You want to live. Speak in a way that keeps someone else from dying the way Alex died. If you cannot, this box will teach you until you can. Something far off rides the concrete and stops. The seam listens to it and stays shut. The vent grants one mean thread and retracts. The bulb's cage warms my cheek from a distance and catalogs me. Who was next door? Ryan says, low. A person with a record that did not hold. The voice replies, you do not want to be them. Ethan presses the back of his head into the wall, as if it might give another inch. He wants us to name the three. No, the voice says. He wants you to stop pretending that naming absolves doing. But you will name. And you will draw the line from names to acts to outcomes. I taste fear and the after of something like ozone. The room loves cause and effect more than it loves us. It loves a straight line. We're not enough, Ethan says. You are exactly enough. The phone on the floor vibrates again. A new voicemail opens without our hands. A woman's voice we all know, even if only through emails and ceremonies. Another date. Another soft word carefully chosen to have no edges. The recording ends. The box is full of echoes. It chooses which ones matter. Ryan looks at me the way he used to when rain started, and I hadn't brought a jacket. Breathe. I do. In, hold. Out longer than in. The leaving makes room I didn't think existed. I find a detail I have been avoiding, because it lives in the soft part of me where shame stores itself, and I bring it into the light, where this place can turn it into air. I told Alex he looked good in the blindfold. The sentence tastes like a bruise. The vent loosens half a breath. It isn't mercy. It's conversion. Guilt transmuted into oxygen. Ethan closes his eyes. The muscle in his jaw lets go of one notch. I told the room to make noise. Julia opens her hands. I told the campus to be patient. Ryan holds his shoulders against steel and keeps it simple. I wasn't there. The voice moves the lesson to its next rung. Handshake with reality. You are not here to prove goodness. You are here to produce truth. When you fail, someone dies. You just heard it. The seam, as if in agreement, releases a dry little tick. The floor transmits it to bone. The numbers on the wall seem to grow whiter as my eyes adjust to what the hour chose. Next, the voice continues, calm as a tape measure. When the crest ring lost grip, who could have corrected? Name rolls. Not names. Rolls. Put responsibility where it belongs. Ethan stares at the wall. Senior on the table edge. Captain of the team, I add. Risk chair, Julia says. If he existed. He existed, Ryan says. He was in the room 3 times that month. The vent opens and closes like a coin flip. The bulb hums the way wires hum in the walls of a building you try to sleep in the first night. The box is a lesson disguised as a room. It will keep teaching until it empties us or we pass. The speaker gives the final instruction we get, before silence sharpens again. Prepare to assign next steps. You will build the path you should have taken, and you will walk it out loud. If you cannot, time will fold. The phone lies face down, like a mouth that spent itself. The paper with the memorial program curls at one corner. The recorder's crack catches light like a wound that refuses to close. The air tastes like coins and old rain. I count the leaving and make room for a road I am not sure I can pave. Somewhere beyond the wall, the place that just chose goes quiet, in a way the body recognizes even through steel. Ryan leans just enough to share heat without touching. Don't break. I won't. Mean it. I do. Ethan breathes and holds. The bruise under his eye has started to go the color of a storm that might not arrive. Julia steadies herself down to the bones. The voice lets the second grow large, then leaves it alone. The hour has already spoken. The box waits to hear if we will. The room waits for the road we promised. The paper curls at one corner. The cracked recorder lies still. The old phone sits face down, like a closed eye. Heat clings to the cage around the bulb and washes the corrugation in tired yellow. The vent gives almost nothing. The wall's hidden pulse keeps its indifferent beat, steady enough to borrow. Walk the path you should have taken, the voice says. Order. Breath. I build it because maps are the only mercy left. Kill the music. Lights to full. Break the circle into a lane. One person at the door to guide. One on the phone with campus police and never leave it. One on air, counting out loud so panic hears numbers. No neck movement. Clear floor. Anchor the room with a voice that doesn't shake. Lights first, I say. Then space. Then call. Ethan's jaw clicks. I flipped the switch wrong. Made a shadow. Correct it, the voice answers. Timestamp. 0, I say. Lights. 1, call. 2, lane to door. 3, hands that hold for real. Julia keeps her palms on her knees, spine straight enough to be a rule. Lock the language. Head trauma. Unknown consciousness. Calling now. Rolls. The voice presses. Name them. Door, I say. Phone. Air. Floor. Crowd. Owner. Mine. The room records it and withholds reward. 24 hours glows on the wall like a second box set inside the first. Smaller. Sharper. Julia takes the ledger out of her throat. 2 weeks before, the anonymous report named that basement and 3 upperclassmen. I filed it under monitor. I should have escalated. Ethan looks at her long enough to hurt. Who told you to keep it quiet? No one. Someone. Training, she says. The rooms I live in. Vague spends air. The voice adds. Specifics buy it. She exhales, precise. 2 days before, the risk chair came to office hours. Asked hypotheticals on off-campus traditions, supervision thresholds. I answered with policy. I said off-campus events are not university-sponsored, unless recognized. He heard permission. The vent loosens a thin thread that dies a foot from the floor. Dust glows and falls through it. The heat keeps its hold. Ryan watches the grill, then the phone, as if another mouth might appear. His voice lands even. They texted me as I left town. Ice, speaker, rope for a line. I dropped supplies at the back stairs. I drove. Ethan turns his head. Slow. Rope. For crowd control. It made the circle. Ryan doesn't look away. I thought it would keep people off him. I thought it would stop the shove. The slot opens. A thin printout slides through. Text thread with gray bars where names lived. Timestamps stack like vertebrae. A photo of a trunk. Bags of ice. A Bluetooth speaker. A coil of yellow rope. A blindfold knotted like a joke that forgot to be funny. You knew, Ethan says. I knew I had it. Ryan answers. I didn't know where it would land. A single click taps through the speaker, a nail into wood. Keep precision. The basement rebuilds around the list we're making. Bass that warped walls, string lights that turned dust to halos. The rope cutting a bright circle into floor so the room could pretend it had discipline. I hear the Crest Ring's owner laugh at the wrong time. I hear the stitched bars scratch sleeve as the arm pulled away. I hear the rubber band pop against skin. I hear my own breath decide to stay quiet so the call screen could be buried. Lay sequence, the voice says. Count it. 5, chant, I answer. 4, table leg squeal. 3, laugh curled. 2, lights flipped wrong. 1, hands missed. 0, impact. After. +1, music stops late. +2, the lie. +3, stairs open. +4, cold air outside that doesn't fix anything. The dead phone hums once. A message blooms across the cracked screen without touch. He's fine. Gray bars cover the sender. The sentence sits in the air like a cheap charm. It breaks by itself. Julia looks at it and stacks her words on the other side. Community, care, monitor. Language that wilted when the room needed bones. She doesn't defend it. The knowledge changes everything and nothing. Names to roles to acts to outcomes, the voice says. Then build the inverse. Ethan breathes out until his chest hollows a notch. Crest, lost grip, bars, pulled back, rubber, turned, circle, kept distance, switch, killed light, rope, made a stage. We put a show around a fall. Inverse. Hands that don't leave, I say. Arms that lock. Light that stays up. Rope cut into a lane to the door. Silence for the call. Owner. Mine, I answer again, because the road always loops back. Ryan lays his he's to the steel until the ridges print him. I should have stayed, cut the rope in half. Julia flattens and unflattens her fingers. I should have led with cost, not comfort. The recorder wakes and offers a stairwell audio that smells like cold floor wax. A door opens into laughter. A voice you almost miss whispers, "Don't." Another shouts, "Grab him." Metal rings when someone hits a bar. Then the long breath of the room forgetting itself. Silence afterward blooms like mold. Ethan speaks toward the grill. He weighed less than the room. Begin ethics there, the voice says. Make him weigh more now. The plan grows furniture in my mind. Lights, door, phone, hands that hold. One voice to count. One to speak to the dispatcher. One to say stop like it can make a floor change its mind. Me, I say. Me, Ethan answers. Me, Ryan adds. Me, Julia says. The vent gives the first clean draft in hours and takes it back just as fast. The bulb's pitch softens by a hair. The floor releases a thin stripe of warmth into denim. The box files what we gave it where we can't reach. The speaker turns the wheel to Julia. Office hours, the risk chair, more. He asked about liability, she says. Line between negligence and tragedy. How to avoid institutional responsibility if an off-campus event went wrong. He smiled when he left. I didn't ask why. Follow-up. None. Board meeting. I sat in a room where alumni tied donations to safety confidence. I didn't stand up. Why? I believed later existed. The box loves yes. It holds hers until the air feels thinner, by idea alone. Ryan gives me the thing he's kept. One more. Under the rope was a second blindfold. If they lost the first. I saw it and didn't take it back. My stomach tightens in small, mean waves. Why? I wanted the city. I wanted to forget the basement. I wanted to forget you were going. The vent doesn't pay out for that. The bulb hums thinner. The floor keeps cold. Ethan drags grit with his heel, erases it. There's no place to sit that doesn't hurt. He holds anyway. What would each of you have sacrificed? The voice asks, not unkind, which makes it worse. The answer burns clean. Friends. Standing. Ethan breathes. Protection. Julia gives. Comfort, Ryan says. The vent opens like a paper cut, sting more than air. It still helps. Pick the sacrifice now. The voice continues. Hold it in your mouth. If you can keep it, you live. I hold friends like salt on my tongue. Ethan holds standing like an old jacket he should have thrown away years ago. Julia holds protection until it heats her breath. Ryan holds comfort until it stops being warmth and becomes weight. Your inverse has 5 steps, the voice says. Own one. Lights, I answer. Mine, always on. Door, Ethan says. Mine, lane, hold. Call, Julia says. Mine first, no soft words. Hands, Ryan says. Mine until help takes them. The vent grants a thread that almost counts as wind, then closes. The bulb grows a shade warmer. The wall keeps its indifferent rhythm, impatient as a metronome. Last, the voice says, witness, Claire. I know what it wants. Alex weighs more, I say. He weighs more in my mouth than my friends do in my throat. The hum settles. The box stores the sentence. It doesn't feed us. It never does. Ethan rests his head against the ridges and recalibrates with his eyes shut. Julia opens and closes her hands like someone remembering a prayer they never learned. Ryan sets the back of his skull against steel and memorizes the pain, because pain is proof. Test the inverse, the voice says. Refusal will be answered. The seam shifts, not open. A thought of open that travels through the floor before it touches the ear. Dust lifts and hangs. The vent refuses. The number on the wall stays white. The slot scrapes and spits out a folded card, creased soft by too many pockets. A campus ID sleeve, the kind students keep on a lanyard. No photo, only a blurred imprint, where a face used to stare through plastic. The empty rectangle hits me harder than a picture would have. It looks like a door I didn't open. Next door, Ryan whispers. Record, not obituary. The voice says, stay on the path. I start again because there's nothing else. Lights on, space, call, door. Read breaths, Ethan adds. Count. Use exact words, Julia says. No fine, no incident. Grip, Ryan finishes, even if he fights you, especially then. The phone vibrates and shows a fresh message arriving from a number no one saved. A middle-of-the-night timestamp, the last hour before everything tilted. 3 shots of stupid. The words shine in the dim like insects. The crack in the glass splits them and keeps them together anyway. Sequence, then inverse, then cost, the voice says. You have all 3. Hold them. I press the scissors flat, thread the tape down smoother. It's a habit that has turned into ritual, and ritual holds me when rooms don't. The plan inside my head steadies. Lights, door, call, air, hands. I picture the rope in pieces. I picture the lane. I picture the voice that owns a room because truth finally sits in it. The captive beyond the wall is silent. The hour that chose is over. The next hour builds its bones in the metal around us. The vent breathes once, stingy as a miser. The bulb hums. The floor steals heat slowly. Not mean, just this is what floors do. We're not enough, Ethan says again, softer. You are exactly enough, the voice replies. Or you are exactly not. Your speech will prove which. Ryan leans near without touching. Don't break. I won't. Mean it. I do. Julia looks at the cracked phone, then at me. Her expression has thinned to something bare. No more cushion. No more cushion. The seam takes a breath like a mouth preparing to speak. The warehouse outside shifts its weight and settles. The wall's pulse tucks itself under my ribs and refuses to sink. Maybe that's mercy. The path is drawn. The cost sits on my tongue. The box listens for cracks. I keep the step I took where air can't knock it loose. The number holds its white, bright as a promise the room never made, and still expects us to honor. The seam breathes once, like the door is thinking. Dust lifts and hangs. Heat presses down in a slow sheet from the bulb's cage. The vent holds its stingy draft, as if saving it to teach a lesson. The wall's pulse keeps its patient beat. The box likes schedule. It will make a class out of anything. Test the inverse, the voice says. Sequence, precision. Do it with breath. I set the plan in my mouth because that's all I have. Lights. Ethan angles his shoulders toward the seam, shaping a lane out of air. Door. Julia fixes her gaze on the grill, like a lens narrowing. Call. Ryan's word lands like weight. Hands. Address, the voice asks. Street name, Cross Street, that stubborn door number. The basement entrance that eats sound. The hall that smells like detergent and old pizza even in winter. I say it. The sentence hardens by saying it twice. It feels like a key I should have used. Describe the patient. Male, freshman, fall from table height, unknown loss of consciousness, breathing shallow, possible head trauma. Do not move his neck, Julia adds, voice built from training she stored where panic can't reach. Check airway, count breaths. 1, 2, 3, Ethan says, metronome steady. The numbers drill through the hum and steady something small behind my ribs. The vent opens a thread, stingy as always, then closes. The room likes work. It hates comfort. Who kills the music? The voice asks. Me, Ethan answers. First thing. What else? I flip the right switch. The admission tastes like rust. Which you did not do, the voice says. Not then. Now. He places his palm flat on steel, as if intention could be read. Now. Language. The voice turns on Julia. No euphemisms, she says. Fall, head trauma, EMS. Immediate response required. No incident, no fine, no monitor. The old phone vibrates once and flashes a ghostly call log across its cracked face. Missed. Unknown. Time stamped like a thumbprint no one owns. Ryan watches it and gives the part he owes. I cut the rope in half. Lane, not circle. Hold an elbow with both hands. Doesn't matter who sees me shaking. Who opens the door? The voice asks. Me, Ethan says. I make a path. I make room for the people who know what they're doing. No crowd, no show. Who anchors the room? Me, I answer. I stand where the table used to be and tell the truth out loud. Tell it. Stop. He is not fine. Clear the lane now. Do not touch his neck. We are calling. Again. Enough to make a floor listen. I let the words stand like a wall. Stop. He is not fine. Clear the lane. We are calling. Do not touch his neck. Heat backs off by a knife width and returns. The vent refuses. The pulse keeps not caring. The box records and hides it where we can't retrieve it. Cost, the voice says. Name it with the step. Friends. Standing. Protection. Comfort. Hold them, the voice says. Do not set them down for applause. You will not get to pick them back up. Friends burns like salt on my tongue. The room never rewards clean. It rewards sharp. The seam shifts a thought to the left. Outside, a wheel runs a short track and stops. The box clears space for a blade I can't see. Now, the voice says, soft as paper sliding. The three who let go. You named roles. You will name names. Draw the line to outcome, or time folds. Air thins by idea more than measure. I see the crest ring and the bad laugh it belonged to. The stitched bars and the face that thought rank could carry a body. The rubber wristband and the twitch that wanted a joke more than a grip. Names line up like teeth. Ethan's breath changes. He stares at the floor. You already know them. That is not speech. Julia's eyes hold mine. No more cushion. Ryan leans until a little heat moves across the inch between us. Don't break. I won't. Mean it. I do. The slot offers a torn strip of paper, 3 first names hidden under black bars so heavy the fiber buckles. The ink bled. The shadows still show. The box wants me to peel the bars back with my mouth. Name them, the voice says. Aaron, I say for crest. Bryce, I say for bars. Mason, I say for rubber. The names fall in a small ring and refuse to bounce. Lines, the voice says. Aaron lost grip. Bryce pulled away. Mason turned. Rope kept distance. Switch killed light. Circle made a stage. Chant made a machine. My thumb hid the call. He fell. Alex, the voice says, heavier by being quieter. Alex, I repeat, because the name has to live in the air longer than the lie. Now each of you will place one detail about the fall you avoided because it makes you ugly. Ethan opens his hands like he's offering up handles. I wanted the night to stay night. Julia's mouth becomes a cut. I believed optics were ethics. if I held them steady enough. Ryan's breath scrapes, steadies. I drove past an ambulance and didn't exit. Mine tastes like a bruise. I told him he looked good in the blindfold. The room takes them with cold efficiency. No trophies, no sweetening. Still, something shifts. A notch somewhere we can't see. A gear resetting in a wall we can't touch. Completeness keeps minutes, the voice says. Delay collapses them. Observe. Fresh scratches brighten under the cage. Metal curls drop in tiny commas. The new number arrives like a lesson, not a mercy. 12 hours. My ribs cinch a notch. The floor tilts inside my body and not under me. The vent gives a mean thread, as if to make sure the hurt travels. Half, Ethan says, voice leveled to keep from breaking. Nearly, the voice corrects, and the tiny word makes the room smaller. We gave names, Julia says. You gave some names, the voice replies. You still clutch what matters. You still think you can live with a story that leaves you clean. Ryan presses into steel like it can carry the part of him he doesn't want. What's left? Sequence complete, the voice says. Ownership partial. Your plan exists. It is late. You will carry it out here with each other, or outside with others. If you fail, the hour chooses. A faint clack travels under the floor like a small animal moving along joists. The seam inhales and holds. The box loves this part. Time becomes a blade. Next, the voice continues, calm as glass. Second-order acts. Who hid video? Who deleted messages? Who muted the mother's name? Speak now or pay interest. I deleted the chant video, Ethan says. I told myself it protected him. I made a folder named Draft, Julia says. I put nothing and everything inside it. I told a pledge to lose his camera, Ryan says. I blocked Alex's sister when the fundraiser posts started, I say. I told myself I needed space. Interest paid, the voice says. Not full. The slot spits a thin ribbon of tape, the kind you use to keep a thing from rattling into view. The message is not subtle. We leave it on the floor. Choose, the voice says. Full or lesson. Ryan watches me without speaking. The question crosses the inch between us and sits under my ribs. Full, I say. Promise attached to a place, the voice replies. One act with a date and address. Measurable. If you lie, the hour chooses here. I see the building, the stairs, the table someone still uses, like nothing ever happened. The door with polite words in its window. The map is bright now. I will go back to that basement, I say. I will put a sign on the door with the police number and the steps and the cost. I will write Alex's name. I will say fall. I will say hold. I will say call now. I will teach Elaine, Ethan says. Stand at doors and fail people back out into air. I will reopen the anonymous report, Julia says. Sign my name to it. Say, we failed. I will tell the pledges what I brought and what it cost, Ryan says. I will return the blindfold. The room hears and gives us nothing. That's how you know it's true. It doesn't need applause. Schedule, the voice says. Tomorrow, I answer. Tomorrow, Ethan repeats. Tomorrow, Julia says. Tomorrow, Ryan adds. The vent opens like a paper cut. Air cools my lips and stings. 12 hours glows white enough to hurt. You will not all see tomorrow, the voice says. Completeness is a door you will either use or die staring at. Heat presses harder, as if the room liked the sentence. The seam grows quiet, the way mouths do, before they speak, and prefer to make you wait. Before the next hour, the voice says, one of you will stop breathing if you leave anything unspoken. Who? Ethan asks. Not a name, the voice replies. A weight, the lightest will go. The tone rises from the grill, thin as wire, bright as a needle. It threads the air and holds. The room listens like it was made for this. The seam breathes, the vent denies. The sound climbs a hair as if pain could be tuned. I count the leaving. 7. I make a pocket panic can't fill. I keep my step where breath can't knock it loose. Lights. I picture the rope cut into a lane. I picture the door open. A path the size of a body. The voice returns without raising volume. Completeness keeps minutes. At the mark, the clock halves again. 6 hours, unless the record is full. The bulb ticks. Fresh scratches glint faintly, not numbers yet, just the silver of a blade thinking about work. The seam unlocks one notch and stops on purpose. The tone sharpens until my teeth hum. Ryan's shoulder touches mine, careful weight of a promise. Julia holds her spine like it's the last straight line left. Ethan stares at the seam and waits to meet whatever comes through it, like a rival. Complete, the voice says, or the hour will make its choice inside this room. The tone climbs. The light blanches to paper. The metal smells like rain. Words I haven't said stack behind my teeth and press for air. The scratches deepen under the cage, shimmering lines that want to become a number. The seam draws a thin breath and holds. The hour leans closer.